When the courtroom doors exploded open, Ethan Cole's smug smile finally cracked. The single father who'd spent years building what he thought was his empire watched in horror as armed security filled the room. His quiet, jobless ex-wife, the woman he'd publicly humiliated, cheated on, and tried to strip of custody, stood calmly as a team of corporate lawyers revealed the truth that would destroy him. She wasn't nobody. She never had been. And everything he owned? She'd given it to him. This is the story of a man who betrayed a billionaire without knowing it. Stay until the end, hit that like button, and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. The rain hit the courthouse steps like bullets, but Ethan Cole barely noticed. He stood under the overhang, checking his Rolex. His Rolex, the one he'd bought after landing the Riverside Commercial Center project 3 years ago, and allowed himself a tight smile. Inside that building, in less than an hour, he'd walk away with everything that mattered. Full custody of Lily, the apartment, his freedom from a marriage that had become dead weight. You ready? Khloe appeared beside him, her heels clicking against wet concrete. 26, blonde, with the kind of legs that looked airbrushed even in courthouse lighting. She slipped her hand into his, fingers warm despite the November chill. More than ready, Ethan said. This should be quick. Martin said Vanessa doesn't even have a lawyer. Khloe's perfectly shaped eyebrows rose. Seriously? She's representing herself? Apparently, Ethan shrugged. Not like she can afford one anyway. They headed inside, shaking off rain. The courthouse lobby smelled like floor polish and stale coffee. Ethan's attorney, Martin Webb, waited by the security checkpoint, briefcase in hand, looking exactly like what Ethan paid him $400 an hour to look like. Expensive, competent, ruthless. Morning, Martin said, shaking Ethan's hand with the kind of firm grip that cost extra. Everything's in order. The custody argument is airtight, financial records are clean, and frankly, she doesn't have a leg to stand on. This will be over by lunch. Perfect, Ethan said. I've got a meeting at 2. They passed through security. Khloe wasn't supposed to be here. Martin had advised against it, said it looked bad. But Ethan didn't care anymore. Let Vanessa see what she'd lost. Let her understand that he'd moved on, upgraded, found someone who actually took care of herself instead of wandering around in thrift store cardigans and discount jeans. The courtroom was smaller than Ethan expected. Plain wood benches, fluorescent lights humming overhead, an American flag hanging limp in the corner. A few other cases waited ahead of theirs. A property dispute, something about unpaid child support. And there, sitting alone on the left side of the room, was Vanessa. She looked exactly like she always did. Small, maybe 5'4" in flats. Dark hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. Wearing a navy blue sweater that had seen better days and black pants that definitely came from a department store clearance rack. No jewelry except her wedding ring, which, Ethan noticed with satisfaction, she'd finally removed. She glanced up when they entered. Her eyes met his for exactly 2 seconds, then dropped back to the folder in her lap. No tears, no anger, nothing. Just that same quiet, maddeningly calm expression she'd worn for the last 6 months while their marriage imploded. Khloe leaned close, whispering, "That's her? That's who you were married to?" "Unfortunately," Ethan muttered. They took seats on the right side. Martin pulled out documents, organized them with practiced efficiency. Ethan tried not to look at Vanessa, but his eyes kept drifting over. She sat perfectly still, hands folded, like she was waiting for a bus instead of a divorce that would financially ruin her. How is she this calm? The thought irritated him more than it should have. She should be falling apart. She should be begging him to reconsider, crying about Lily, making this difficult. Instead, she just sat there, like none of this mattered, like he didn't matter. All rise. Everyone stood as Judge Patricia Morrison entered, a stern-looking woman in her late 50s with gray hair and reading glasses that hung on a chain around her neck. She settled behind the bench, reviewing files. Case number 2024-DR-8847 Cole v. Reed. Dissolution of marriage with contested custody. She looked up. I see we have Mr. Cole represented by counsel. Mrs. Reed, are you representing yourself today? Vanessa stood. Yes, Your Honor. Her voice was quiet but steady. Same voice she'd used to read bedtime stories to Lily. Same voice she'd used 3 years ago when Ethan came home drunk from the office Christmas party and she'd helped him to bed without judgment. Same voice she'd used 6 months ago when she asked him, point blank, if he was sleeping with Khloe. "Very well," Judge Morrison said. "We'll begin with opening statements. Mr. Webb?" Martin stood, buttoning his suit jacket. "Thank you, Your Honor. This is a straightforward case. My client, Ethan Cole, has been the sole financial provider for this family since the marriage began 8 years ago. He works 60-hour weeks as a licensed architect, earning a substantial income that has funded every aspect of their lifestyle: the home, the cars, their daughter's education, everything." He gestured toward Vanessa without looking at her. Mrs. Reed, meanwhile, has been unemployed throughout the entire marriage. She contributes no income, has no career, no prospects, and no viable plan for supporting a child. My client loves his daughter deeply and has provided her with stability, opportunity, and a secure future. Mrs. Reed, despite her role as a stay-at-home mother, has demonstrated neither the financial capacity nor the practical means to maintain custody. We're asking the court to grant full physical custody to Mr. Cole with reasonable visitation for Mrs. Reed. Muchas. He sat down, smooth, practiced, devastating. Judge Morrison turned to Vanessa. "Mrs. Reed, your response?" Vanessa stood again. She didn't have notes, didn't have a briefcase full of documents, just that folder in her hands held loosely against her stomach. "Your Honor," she said quietly, "I don't dispute the facts as presented. I haven't held traditional employment during our marriage. Mr. Cole has indeed worked very hard. I'm not here to attack his character or his abilities as a father." Ethan felt a flicker of surprise. "What?" Vanessa continued. "I'm here because I love my daughter and want what's best for her. I believe I can provide that. I'm prepared to present evidence regarding my financial situation and my ability to care for Lily, but I'd like to wait until Mr. Cole has presented his case fully before I respond." Judge Morrison's eyes narrowed slightly. "You're waiving your opening statement?" "I'd like to hear everything Mr. Cole has to say first," Vanessa said. "I think it'll be more efficient that way." "Unusual, but acceptable. You may sit." Vanessa sat. Ethan leaned toward Martin. "What's she doing?" "Stalling, maybe," Martin whispered. "Doesn't matter. We've got everything we need." The next hour was a masterclass in legal demolition. Martin called Ethan to the stand first. Under direct examination, Ethan painted the picture they'd rehearsed: devoted father, tireless worker, man who'd sacrificed everything for his family only to watch his marriage crumble because his wife couldn't be bothered to contribute. "Mr. Cole," Martin said, pacing slowly, "can you describe a typical day in your household before the separation?" "I'd wake up at 5:30, Ethan said, facing the judge. "Get to the office by 7, work until 6 or 7 at night, sometimes later if we had deadlines. Come home exhausted. Vanessa would have dinner ready, usually. We'd eat. I'd spend maybe an hour with Lily before bedtime. Then I'd often have to work more from home. Weekends were similar. I'd try to take Lily to the park or activities, but I was always behind on projects." "And what did Mrs. Reed do during this time?" "Housework, I guess. Cooking. She didn't work, so she had all day to handle domestic things." "Did she express any interest in employment, in contributing financially?" "No," Ethan said firmly. "I brought it up a few times, especially when money was tight early on, but she always said she wanted to focus on being home with Lily." It wasn't exactly a lie. Vanessa had said that. What Ethan left out was that he'd been the one to suggest it in the first place, back when Lily was a baby and daycare costs were astronomical. "Mr. Cole, when did you first become aware that your marriage was failing?" Ethan paused, as if the memory pained him. Another rehearsed moment. "About a year ago. Vanessa became distant, distracted. We stopped talking about anything meaningful. I tried to reconnect, suggested couples therapy, but she refused. Said she was fine, everything was fine, but it clearly wasn't." More misdirection. He'd been the one refusing therapy. Vanessa had brought it up 4 times. Martin continued, "And during this period you met Miss Morgan, Khloe Morgan, who began working as your assistant?" "Yes. Last January. At any point did your relationship with Ms. Morgan become inappropriate while you were still married?" Ethan looked directly at the judge. "No. Khloe and I became close as friends and colleagues, but nothing romantic happened until after Vanessa and I separated. The lie tasted like copper. He'd been sleeping with Khloe for 7 months before he moved out. Hotel rooms Tuesday and Thursday nights, late client dinners, a weekend trip to Portland that Vanessa believed was a conference, but she couldn't prove any of it. "Thank you, Mr. Cole. No further questions." Judge Morrison gestured. "Mrs. Reed, do you wish to cross-examine?" Vanessa stood, walked slowly toward the witness stand. Ethan watched her approach, that same unreadable expression on her face. "Ethan," she said softly, not Mr. Cole, just his name, like they were alone in their kitchen. "Do you remember the Riverside Commercial Center project?" Odd question. "Of course, that was one of my biggest contracts." "How did you get that contract?" "Through my firm. We submitted a proposal, I presented to the client, and we won the bid." "Do you remember the name of the client company?" Ethan frowned. Peak Development Group, I think." "Peak Development Holdings," Vanessa corrected. "Do you know who owns Peak Development Holdings?" "Some investment firm, I don't know. Why does it matter?" "I'm just clarifying. You don't know the ownership structure of the company that gave you your biggest contract?" Martin stood. "Objection, relevance." "I'm establishing financial background, Your Honor," Vanessa said calmly. "It relates to Mr. Cole's claims about being the sole provider." "I'll allow it, but get to the point quickly, Mrs. Reed." "Yes, Your Honor." Vanessa turned back to Ethan. "What about the Harbor District mixed-use development? Do you remember that one?" "Of course." Ethan's irritation grew. "That was 2 years ago, another major project." "Client name?" "I don't remember off the top of my head. My firm handles multiple clients." "Meridian Urban Investments," Vanessa supplied. "Does that sound right?" "Sure, yeah." "And the West Side Transit Hub redesign?" "What is this?" Ethan snapped. "Yes, I worked on that too. So what?" "The client was Coastal Real Estate Partners, correct?" "I guess." "You guess or you know?" "I know," Ethan said through gritted teeth. "What's your point, Vanessa?" She didn't answer, just returned to her table, pulled 3 sheets of paper from her folder, and handed them to the bailiff. "Your Honor, I'd like to submit these as evidence. Corporate registration documents for Peak Development Holdings, Meridian Urban Investments, and Coastal Real Estate Partners." Judge Morrison took the papers, studied them. Her expression didn't change, but something shifted in her posture. "Mrs. Reed," she said slowly, "these documents show you listed as primary shareholder and registered agent for all 3 companies." "Yes, Your Honor." The courtroom went silent. Ethan stared at Vanessa. "What?" She didn't look at him, kept her attention on the judge. "Those 3 companies, along with about 40 others, are subsidiaries of my primary holding corporation. They exist to fund various projects and investments, including several contracts awarded to my husband's architecture firm over the past 6 years." "That's ridiculous," Ethan said, but his voice came out wrong, uncertain. Martin was on his feet. "Your Honor, I had no knowledge of these alleged companies. This evidence is completely undisclosed, and the documents are publicly available through the Secretary of State's office," Vanessa said. "Registration numbers are on the letterhead. Anyone could have looked them up. I assume Mr. Cole's attorney had done basic due diligence." Martin's face went red. Judge Morrison set the papers down. "Continue, Mrs. Reed." "Thank you. Ethan, you testified that you've been the sole financial provider for our family, that I've contributed nothing. Is that still your position?" Ethan's mind was reeling. "I earned that money. I did the work." "You did," Vanessa agreed. "You're a talented architect. Those projects were completed because of your skills. But you received those contracts because I made sure you did. Peak Development specifically requested your firm for Riverside. Meridian and Coastal did the same for their projects. Without those 3 contracts alone, your firm would have gone bankrupt 4 years ago." "You're lying." But even as he said it, Ethan felt something cold spreading through his chest. "I have emails," Vanessa said. "Correspondence between myself and the project managers at each company. Would you like me to submit those as well?" Martin was frantically flipping through his own documents, searching for something that would make this make sense. Ethan's hands gripped the witness stand. "If this is true, which I don't believe, why would you do that? Why hide it?" For the first time, something flickered across Vanessa's face. Not anger. Something sadder. "Because I loved you," she said simply. And I knew if you found out your wife was secretly funding your career, it would destroy your pride. You needed to believe you'd built everything yourself, so I let you believe that. This is insane, Ethan said. You're making this up. You don't own companies. You don't have that kind of money. Actually, Vanessa said, I do. But we can come back to that. I have one more question for now. She pulled out another sheet of paper. This one looked different. A bank statement. Your Honor, this is a statement for a joint savings account Mr. Cole and I opened 6 years ago. The initial deposit was $50,000, which I contributed from a family trust. Over the years, we added to it from Mr. Cole's income. As of 6 months ago, the balance was approximately $340,000. She handed the statement to the bailiff, who passed it to the judge. Mr. Cole, Vanessa said, what's the current balance of that account? Ethan's throat went dry. Mr. Cole? I'd have to check. I can save you the trouble. It's $8,200. Over $330,000 was withdrawn in the last 6 months. Do you know where that money went? The silence in the courtroom felt like pressure against Ethan's eardrums. Some of it went to living expenses after I moved out, he said carefully. Living expenses, Vanessa repeated. She pulled out more papers, hotel receipts, restaurant charges, a jewelry store purchase for $18,000, airline tickets to Cancun. These are all from that account, she said, charged between February and August of this year, while we were still married. While you were telling me we needed to be careful with money because business was slow. Ethan felt Khloe shift uncomfortably in her seat behind him. Mr. Cole, Judge Morrison said, her voice carrying an edge now. Did you make these purchases? Some of them were business expenses. A $4,000 dinner at Le Bernardin. Vanessa read from a receipt. Table for two, charged to our savings account 3 days after you told me we couldn't afford to fix Lily's bicycle. Your Honor, Martin tried, my client's spending habits during the separation are not— This was during the marriage, Mr. Webb, before any separation. The judge looked at Ethan. Answer the question. Did you make these purchases while still living with your wife and daughter? Ethan's jaw worked. Yes. And were they business expenses? No. Were they for Ms. Morgan? A long pause, then. Some of them. Judge Morrison removed her glasses, rubbed the bridge of her nose. Step down, Mr. Cole. Ethan stumbled back to his seat. His hands were shaking. Martin wouldn't look at him. Mrs. Reed, the judge said, I'm going to ask you directly, what is your current financial situation? I'm comfortable, Your Honor. That's vague. Can you be more specific? I'd prefer to wait until Mr. Cole has finished presenting his custody case. I think context will be important. The judge studied her for a long moment. Very well. Mr. Webb, call your next witness. But Martin looked rattled now. The smooth confidence from earlier had evaporated. Your Honor, perhaps we should take a short recess. No recess. Next witness. Martin glanced at his notes. The defense calls Khloe Morgan. Khloe walked to the stand, suddenly looking much younger than 26. She wore a conservative gray dress that didn't quite hide how expensive her shoes were. After she was sworn in, Martin approached. Ms. Morgan, how long have you worked with Mr. Cole? About 15 months. And what's your role? I'm his executive assistant. I manage his schedule, coordinate with clients, handle administrative tasks. During this time, have you observed Mr. Cole's relationship with his daughter? Yes, he's an amazing father. He talks about Lily constantly. He always makes time for her, even when he's overwhelmed with work. He clearly loves her more than anything. Have you spent time with Lily yourself? A few times, yes. She's a sweet kid, smart. Ethan has done a great job raising her. Thank you. No further questions. Judge Morrison looked at Vanessa. Cross-examine? Vanessa stood, walked toward Khloe slowly. Ms. Morgan, she said, you mentioned you've spent time with Lily. When was this? A couple times, recently. Can you be more specific? Khloe glanced at Ethan. Maybe 3 or 4 times over the past few months? Where did these interactions take place? At Ethan's apartment. The apartment he moved into after our separation? Yes. Did these visits happen during the day or evening? Evening, mostly. After work. I see. And during these evening visits, did you stay overnight? Chloe's face flushed. I don't see how that's relevant. Did you stay overnight at the apartment where my 6-year-old daughter lives? Sometimes. How often is sometimes? I don't keep track. More than 10 times? Maybe. More than 20? Chloe didn't answer. Vanessa pulled out another document. This is a visitor log from the apartment building. Security requires all guests to sign in after 9 p.m. According to this, you've stayed overnight at Mr. Cole's apartment 43 times in the last 4 months. That's roughly 3 nights per week. Martin stood. Objection? Harassment. I'm establishing living arrangements relevant to custody, Your Honor. Overruled. Answer the question, Ms. Morgan. Chloe's voice was small. That sounds about right. During these overnight stays, where does Lily sleep? In her room. And where do you sleep? In Ethan's room. So my daughter has been living in an apartment where you and her father share a bedroom 3 nights a week, despite the fact that you've only known each other for 15 months and you began this relationship while he was still married. It's not like that. Did you meet Ethan before or after he separated from me? Chloe's eyes dropped. Before. How long before? I started working for him last January. And when did your relationship become romantic? Silence. Miss Morgan? I don't remember exactly. Was it before or after he moved out? I think. Ms. Morgan, you're under oath. Chloe's voice cracked. Before, but it wasn't. We didn't mean for it to happen. It just did. When? Vanessa's voice was still quiet, but something harder had entered it. How long were you sleeping with my husband while he was living in my home and sleeping in my bed? Objection. Martin was standing again. This is clearly meant to embarrass. This speaks directly to Mr. Cole's character and judgment, Vanessa said, not taking her eyes off Khloe. He's asking for full custody while claiming I'm unfit. I have a right to examine his choices. Judge Morrison nodded slowly. I'll allow it. Answer the question, Ms. Morgan. Chloe's hands twisted in her lap. When she spoke, it was barely audible. Since March. Last year. The courtroom was utterly silent. That's 13 months, Vanessa said. You've been having an affair with my husband for 13 months. During that time, did he ever tell you he was planning to divorce me? Yes. When did he first mention divorce? In June. He said the marriage was already over, that you two hadn't been happy for years. He told you this while still living with me and our daughter? Yes, but did he tell you he was spending money from our savings account on you? Chloe's face went white. I didn't know. The $18,000 diamond bracelet he gave you for your birthday. Did you know that money was supposed to be for Lily's college fund? He never said, the trip to Cancun in July. Did you know he told me he was at an architecture conference in Chicago? Tears started running down Chloe's face. I'm sorry. I didn't know. You knew he was married, Vanessa said flatly. You knew he had a daughter. You knew, and you didn't care. That's not fair. What's not fair, Vanessa said, her voice finally rising just slightly, is my daughter asking me why Daddy doesn't come home anymore. What's not fair is having to explain to a 6-year-old that sometimes people break promises. What's not fair is you sitting there pretending you're a victim when you actively participated in destroying a child's family. Objection! Martin's voice was desperate now. Withdrawn. Vanessa turned away. No further questions. Khloe practically ran from the stand. Judge Morrison called for a 10-minute recess. In the hallway, Ethan couldn't look at anyone. Khloe had disappeared into the women's bathroom. Martin was on his phone, probably calling his malpractice insurance carrier. This was supposed to be simple. Quick. Vanessa didn't have money for lawyers, didn't have evidence, didn't have anything. She was supposed to roll over. Instead, she'd systematically dismantled everything. Ethan, Martin grabbed his arm. We need to talk. Those companies she mentioned, did you know about them? No, I swear I didn't. How is that possible? She's been funding your career for years and you had no idea? I don't know. I didn't ask where the contracts came from. I did the work, that's all. Martin pinched the bridge of his nose. This is bad. Really bad. The financial stuff makes you look terrible. The affair makes you look worse. And if she really owns those companies, he trailed off. What exactly does your wife do for a living? Nothing. She's a housewife. She doesn't work. Housewives don't own multiple development corporations, Ethan. Then she's lying. I don't know what game she's playing, but those were real corporate documents. I saw the registration numbers, and she knew you'd verify them, which means they'll check out. Martin's voice dropped. Who the hell did you marry? Ethan didn't have an answer. They filed back into the courtroom. Vanessa sat in the same position, hands folded, expression calm. How was she so calm? Judge Morrison returned. Mr. Webb, do you have additional witnesses? Martin stood slowly. No, Your Honor, the defense rests. Mrs. Reed, would you like to present your case? Vanessa stood. Yes, Your Honor, I call myself to the stand. She walked up, was sworn in, and sat down facing the courtroom. Mrs. Reed, Judge Morrison said, I'm going to ask you again. What is your current financial situation? Vanessa took a slow breath. Your Honor, for the past 8 years I've allowed my husband and everyone else to believe I was unemployed. That was a choice I made deliberately. The truth is, I'm the sole owner and CEO of Reed Global Technologies. The name hit Ethan like a physical blow. Reed Global Technologies was one of the largest tech corporations in the country. Market cap in the tens of billions. They manufactured everything from computer processors to medical devices. Everyone had heard of them. That's impossible, Ethan said out loud. Martin yanked him back down into his seat. Vanessa continued, My father, David Reed, founded the company 40 years ago. When he passed away 8 years ago, ownership transferred to me and my brother Alexander. We split the shares 60-40, with me holding controlling interest. I became CEO 6 months later. This is insane, Ethan muttered. I can provide documentation, Vanessa said. Corporate filings, tax returns, stock certificates, whatever the court requires. Why? Judge Morrison asked. Why hide this from your husband? Vanessa's expression finally softened. Because I wanted a real marriage, Your Honor. Not someone who married me for money or status. My father's wealth attracted a lot of attention when I was younger. People who saw dollar signs instead of a person. When I met Ethan in that coffee shop 8 years ago, he had no idea who I was. He just saw me. We talked about architecture and music and bad TV shows. It was normal, real, and I wanted to keep it that way. She glanced at Ethan. So I hid it. I created a separate identity for my professional life, used my mother's maiden name for business, kept my personal and corporate worlds completely separate. At work, I was Victoria Hayes. At home, I was just Vanessa, Ethan's wife, Lily's mother. Did you ever plan to tell him? The judge asked. Yes. After Lily was older, when the marriage was stable enough that I knew the truth wouldn't change anything. I wanted him to love me, not my bank account. Her voice wavered slightly. Turns out money wasn't the problem. Ethan felt like the floor had dropped out beneath him. 8 years. 8 years of marriage, and he hadn't known the most basic fact about his wife's life. How was that possible? The apartment we lived in, Vanessa continued, is owned by a trust I established before our marriage. The cars are leased through my holding companies. Almost every major contract Ethan's firm received came from subsidiaries I either own or have significant investment in. I made sure his career succeeded because I loved him and I wanted him to be happy. She pulled out more documents, financial statements, property deeds, stock portfolios. I'm not telling you this to humiliate him, Your Honor. I'm telling you because Mr. Cole has argued that I have no means to support our daughter. That's not true. I can provide Lily with anything she needs: education, healthcare, stability, opportunity. I own a penthouse in the city that I've never used. I have a net worth that would allow her to never worry about money. But more importantly, I can give her what she actually needs, which is a parent who's present, who listens, who puts her first. Judge Morrison was writing notes. Go on. Mr. Cole testified that he works 60-hour weeks. That's true. What he didn't mention is that his firm is currently in financial trouble because I terminated all contracts from my company 6 weeks ago after I learned the full extent of his affair and the money he'd stolen from our savings. Without those contracts, his firm is likely to declare bankruptcy within the next few months. Ethan's heart stopped. Your Honor, Martin stood, if Mrs. Reed deliberately sabotaged my client's business out of revenge, I didn't sabotage anything. Vanessa said calmly. I simply stopped giving him preferential treatment. My companies are free to award contracts to whichever firms they choose. We chose to go with other architects. That's not revenge. That's business. It's retaliatory. It's what happens when you build a career on someone else's foundation and then betray them, Vanessa said. Ethan's firm had opportunities most architects would kill for. He squandered them by spending company resources on personal affairs and then demanding a divorce because he thought his wife was worthless. Judge Morrison held up a hand. That's enough. Mrs. Reed, do you have anything else to present?
Just one more thing. Vanessa reached into her folder and pulled out a small pink notebook. This is Lily's diary. She left it at my apartment last weekend. I wouldn't normally read it, but there was an entry dated 2 weeks ago that I think is relevant. She opened it to a bookmarked page and read aloud.
Daddy has a new friend named Khloe. She's nice, but she's not mommy. She tries to make me call her Aunt Khloe, but I don't want to. Last night they were yelling after I went to bed. Daddy said mommy doesn't have any money and that's why I have to live with him. But I don't understand because mommy always has money for ice cream and books. Khloe said mommy is trying to trick daddy. I don't like it when they talk about mommy. It makes my stomach hurt. Vanessa closed the notebook. My daughter is 6 years old, Your Honor. She shouldn't be exposed to adult conflicts. She shouldn't be listening to her father and his girlfriend disparage her mother. She shouldn't be going to bed with a stomachache because the adults in her life can't behave with basic decency. Your Honor, Martin tried, but his voice had lost all conviction. Sit down, Mr. Webb. Judge Morrison looked at Vanessa. Is there anything else?
No, Your Honor. Just a request that whatever you decide, you prioritize Lily's emotional well-being. She's already lost the family structure she knew. She doesn't need to lose her mother, too. Vanessa stepped down and returned to her seat. The courtroom was silent except for the hum of fluorescent lights and someone's phone vibrating in the gallery. Judge Morrison reviewed her notes for what felt like an hour, but was probably 3 minutes. Then she looked up.
I'm prepared to rule, she said. Ethan's chest tightened. Based on the evidence presented today, I find that Mr. Cole has fundamentally misrepresented both his financial situation and his character. The documentation shows a pattern of deception, financial misconduct, and adultery. More concerning is the evidence that he has actively disparaged Mrs. Reed in front of their minor child and exposed that child to an unstable home environment during a sensitive transitional period.
Martin opened his mouth, but Judge Morrison continued. Mrs. Reed, on the other hand, has demonstrated both the financial means and the emotional stability to provide primary care. While I have concerns about her decision to hide her professional identity from her husband, I don't find that it impacts her fitness as a parent. She flipped a page. Therefore, I'm awarding primary physical custody to Mrs. Reed with Mr. Cole receiving supervised visitation every other weekend and 1 evening per week, pending completion of a family counseling program. Mr. Cole will be responsible for repaying the $330,000 taken from the joint savings account within 18 months, with a payment plan to be determined by both parties' attorneys. The marital home, which I now understand is owned by Mrs. Reed, will remain her property. Mr. Cole has 30 days to vacate. Ethan couldn't breathe. Additionally, I'm ordering a forensic audit of all financial transactions during the marriage. If further misappropriation is discovered, this court will revisit the custody arrangement and potentially pursue legal consequences. Judge Morrison looked directly at Ethan. Mr. Cole, you stood in this courtroom and painted yourself as a self-made man who single-handedly provided for his family. The evidence shows that's a fiction. Your career was built on your wife's covert support. Your lifestyle was funded by her resources. And when she failed to meet your expectations she was never told about because you never bothered to learn who she actually was, you betrayed her in the most fundamental way possible. You chose to pursue an affair, drain your family's savings, and then attempt to take custody of your daughter from the woman who made your entire life possible. Her voice was cold now. I've been on this bench for 23 years. I've seen a lot of bad behavior, but the combination of entitlement, deception, and sheer lack of self-awareness you've displayed today is exceptional. You will not have unsupervised access to your daughter until you've demonstrated substantial personal growth and taken accountability for your actions. Court is adjourned. The gavel came down. Ethan sat frozen as people began filing out. Martin was already packing his briefcase, not looking at him. Khloe had disappeared again.
Across the aisle, Vanessa slowly gathered her papers. She moved like someone who'd finished an unpleasant but necessary task, tired but relieved it was over. She walked past Ethan without glancing at him. At the courtroom doors, though, she paused, turned back. "I really did love you," she said quietly. "I hope someday you figure out what you actually wanted, because it clearly wasn't me." Then she was gone. Ethan sat alone in the empty courtroom, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, and tried to remember the exact moment everything had started falling apart. But he couldn't pinpoint it, because maybe it had been falling apart the whole time, and he'd just been too blind or too arrogant to notice. The apartment looked different in daylight. Ethan stood in the living room he'd occupied for the past 6 months, staring at boxes he hadn't started packing. Through the windows, the city stretched out gray and indifferent under October clouds. He had 23 days left before the eviction became official. His phone buzzed for the 14th time that morning. He didn't need to check to know it was another creditor. The firm's main account had been overdrawn for 2 weeks. Payroll was due Friday, and he had maybe $8,000 across all his accounts combined. Not enough. Not even close. "Are you seriously just standing there?" Khloe emerged from the bedroom, dragging a suitcase. She'd changed since the courthouse. Gone was the conservative gray dress, replaced by designer jeans and a leather jacket that probably cost more than Ethan's car payment. "I'm thinking," Ethan said. "Well, think faster. I need to be out of here by noon." He turned. "What?" "I'm going to stay with my sister in Boston for a while, until this whole mess blows over." She wouldn't meet his eyes. "I already called an Uber." "You're leaving? Now?" "What did you expect, Ethan? You told me your wife was some nobody housewife with no money. Turns out she's a billionaire CEO who just took everything you own." Khloe zipped the suitcase with more force than necessary. "I didn't sign up for this." "You signed up for me. I signed up for the guy who took me to 5-star restaurants and bought me diamond bracelets. Not this." She gestured vaguely at the apartment. "You're broke. Your business is failing. You can't even see your own daughter without supervision. What exactly am I supposed to do with that?" The words hit harder than they should have, probably because some distant part of Ethan's brain recognized he'd said almost the exact same thing to Vanessa 6 months ago, just in different phrasing. "So that's it?" he said. "I lose everything and you just walk away?" Khloe finally looked at him directly. "You didn't lose everything, Ethan. You threw it away. There's a difference." She grabbed her suitcase handle. "I feel bad about how things turned out. I really do. But I can't fix this for you. I never asked you to fix anything." "No. You just asked me to be your escape route from a marriage you were too cowardly to deal with honestly." Her voice softened slightly. "Look, I'm not innocent here. I knew you were married. I knew it was wrong, but I genuinely thought you were this brilliant architect stuck with someone who didn't appreciate you. You made it sound like she was holding you back. She was lying to me for 8 years. She was protecting herself. That's not the same thing." Khloe pulled her suitcase toward the door. "And honestly, after seeing how fast you turned on her when you thought she had nothing, I don't blame her for hiding who she was." The Uber notification pinged on her phone. "Good luck, Ethan. I mean that." She paused at the door. "For what it's worth, I think you loved her. You were just too busy trying to prove something to notice what you had." Then she was gone. Ethan stood alone in the silent apartment, surrounded by boxes he couldn't afford to move, and furniture that wasn't his. His phone rang. Not a creditor this time. His business partner, Marcus Chen. "Tell me you have good news," Ethan said, answering. Marcus's voice was tight. "Henderson just pulled out. That's the 3rd client this week. They can't all pull out. We have contracts. Contracts with penalty clauses we can't afford to fight. And word is spreading, Ethan, about the divorce, about your wife, about everything." Papers rustled in the background. "I got a call this morning from Jennifer Wu at Urban Design. She wanted to know if the rumors were true that Reed Global had been propping up our firm for years." Ethan's stomach dropped. "What did you tell her?" "I told her I had no knowledge of any special arrangements, which is true, by the way. Want to explain to me how you didn't notice your wife was secretly funding our biggest contracts?" "I didn't know, Marcus." "How do you not know something like that? We've been partners for 6 years. She hid it. Ethan caught himself, took a breath. "Look, it doesn't matter now. We need to focus on keeping the firm alive." "There is no firm.
Marcus's voice went flat. I talked to our accountant this morning. Without the Henderson project, we can't make payroll. We can't pay rent on the office. We have maybe 2 weeks before we have to declare bankruptcy. We can get new clients. I'll reach out to who, Ethan? Everyone knows now. Everyone knows your career was built on your ex-wife's money. What architecture firm is going to hire the guy who couldn't even recognize his own wife was a billionaire CEO? Marcus paused. I'm filing the dissolution paperwork on Monday. The firm is done. You can't do that without my signature. Actually, I can. Partnership Agreement Section 12, subsection C. If one partner's actions bring significant reputational damage to the firm, the other partner can dissolve without consent. Your divorce just cost us 3 major clients and probably torpedoed our professional credibility for the next decade. That qualifies. Ethan gripped the phone tighter. Marcus, please, this is my career. It's all I have. You should have thought about that before you blew up your marriage. Marcus's tone softened slightly. I'm sorry, man. I really am. But I've got a family to support. I can't go down with your ship. The line went dead. Ethan sat down hard on the couch. Outside, cars honked. Someone's television played through the thin walls. Normal sounds of a normal Thursday afternoon. His entire life was collapsing, and the world just kept turning. He pulled up his banking app, checked the numbers he'd already memorized. $8,247. That was everything. The joint account Vanessa mentioned in court had been frozen pending the audit. His business accounts were empty. His personal savings had been drained months ago, funding the separation. $8,000. The rent on this apartment alone was $4,000 a month. His car lease was $800. Phone, insurance, utilities. It added up fast. At this rate, he'd be completely broke by Christmas. The supervised visitation with Lily was scheduled for Saturday. 2 hours at a family counseling center with a social worker present. He couldn't even take his own daughter to the park without someone watching to make sure he didn't say the wrong thing. His phone buzzed again. A text this time from a number he didn't recognize. Mr. Cole, this is Richard Hale, Mrs. Reed's attorney. We need to discuss the financial audit and repayment schedule. Please contact my office to arrange a meeting. Ethan deleted the message without responding. What was the point? He didn't have $330,000. He'd never have $330,000. They'd have to garnish whatever wages he could scrape together, and even then it would take him the rest of his life to pay it back. Another text appeared, this one from Martin Webb. I'm withdrawing as your attorney effective immediately. Conflict of interest issues have emerged. I've referred your case to James Patterson at Patterson & Associates. He'll contact you next week. Perfect. Even his lawyer was abandoning him. Ethan tossed the phone onto the couch and walked to the bedroom. The California king bed took up most of the space. Another thing that wasn't his, purchased on credit he couldn't pay off. Khloe had stripped her side clean. No perfume bottles on the dresser, no clothes in the closet, no evidence she'd ever been here. Just like that, gone. He sat on the edge of the bed and tried to remember the last time he'd felt genuinely happy. Not excited about a project, not pleased with himself for closing a deal, but actually happy. The memory that surfaced surprised him. 4 years ago, Lily's 2nd birthday. They'd had a party at the apartment, the real apartment, the one Vanessa owned that he'd believed was his. Just family and a few friends. Vanessa had made the cake herself, a lopsided pink disaster with too much frosting. Lily had gotten it all over her face. Ethan had taken about 100 photos. Later that night, after everyone left and Lily was asleep, he and Vanessa had cleaned up together. She'd been laughing about something, he couldn't remember what, and she'd flicked soapy water at him. He'd retaliated. It turned into a full water fight in the kitchen, both of them soaked and giggling like teenagers. I love you, she'd said, still catching her breath. I love our weird little family. I love you too, he'd replied. And he'd meant it, completely, absolutely meant it. So what happened? When did that turn into late nights at the office with Khloe? When did his wife's quiet presence become invisible instead of comforting? When did he start seeing his marriage as an obligation instead of a choice? The questions didn't have clean answers. Ethan's phone rang again. This time he checked. His mother. He let it go to voicemail. She'd already left 3 messages since the divorce hearing, each one more disappointed than the last. His father hadn't called at all, which somehow felt worse. The afternoon dragged on. Ethan attempted to pack but kept getting distracted. Every item in the apartment carried a memory that didn't belong to him.
The coffee maker Vanessa bought because his old one broke. The bookshelf she'd assembled while he was at work. The framed photo of the three of them at the zoo, Lily on his shoulders, Vanessa laughing at something off camera. He'd thrown that photo away 2 months ago when Khloe moved in. Said it was depressing to keep pictures of his ex-wife around. Now he wished he'd kept it. By evening, he'd managed to fill exactly 2 boxes. Mostly clothes and a few books. Everything else either belonged to Vanessa or wasn't worth moving. His phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. Mr. Cole? A woman's voice, professional. This is Dr. Sarah Chen from Riverside Family Services. I'm calling about your visitation with Lily this Saturday. Right, 2 p.m. I remember. Actually, there's been a change. Mrs. Reed has requested that we move the visitation to our facility downtown instead of the West Side location. She'll be in the area, and it's more convenient for pickup. Fine, whatever she wants. A pause. Mr. Cole, I should mention that I'll be the supervising counselor for your sessions. I've reviewed the court documents, and I want to be clear about expectations. These visits are meant to maintain your relationship with your daughter, not to discuss the divorce or adult issues. Everything we talk about will be age-appropriate and focused on Lily's well-being. I understand. I also need to ask, have you been drinking? Ethan glanced at the empty beer bottles lined up on the counter. 6 of them, from the past 2 hours. No. Mr. Cole, I can hear it in your voice. If you arrive at visitation intoxicated, we'll have to cancel the session and report it to the court. That could jeopardize your custody arrangement permanently. I said I'm fine. Another pause. Longer this time. Okay. I'll see you Saturday at 2. Please don't be late. She hung up. Ethan looked at the beer bottles again. When had 6 become his normal? When had drinking alone in an empty apartment become how he spent his evenings? He grabbed another bottle from the fridge anyway. The next 2 days blurred together. Friday, he went to the office to collect his personal items. The space felt like a tomb. Empty desks, dark computers, Marcus's office already cleaned out. The receptionist, Kelly, was still there, boxing up files. Hey, Ethan said. She looked up, surprised. Oh, hi. Marcus told you? Yeah, last day is today. She taped a box shut. It's fine. I already got a new job lined up at a dental office. Better pay, actually. That's good? Yeah. She grabbed another box. Look, Ethan, I don't want to make this weird, but I'm sorry about everything. The divorce, the business, all of it. Thanks. For what it's worth, I always liked Vanessa. She was nice the few times she came by. Kelly hesitated. I heard what happened in court, about who she really is. That must have been a shock. You could say that? Did you really not know? Everyone's saying, She caught herself. Sorry, not my business. No, I didn't know. Ethan picked up a framed architecture degree from his desk. I didn't know anything, apparently. Kelly didn't respond to that, just kept packing. Ethan gathered the few personal items worth keeping, some awards, a couple of professional books, a photograph of him and Marcus at their first major project opening. 5 years of partnership, gone. Take care of yourself, Kelly said as he left. You too. Saturday morning arrived too fast. Ethan woke up on the couch, still wearing yesterday's clothes, head pounding from another night of beer and insomnia. The visitation was in 4 hours. He forced himself to shower, shave, put on clean clothes, found the nicest shirt he owned that wasn't wrinkled, tried to look like a father who had his life together instead of a man circling the drain. The family services building was downtown, a nondescript brown structure wedged between a parking garage and a Starbucks. Ethan arrived 15 minutes early and sat in his car, watching people walk past. Regular people with regular problems. None of them had just discovered their wife was secretly a billionaire. None of them had destroyed their entire life in 6 months. At 1:58, he walked inside. The lobby was aggressively cheerful. Bright colors, kids' artwork on the walls, a fish tank burbling in the corner. A receptionist directed him to room 3B on the second floor. Dr. Chen was waiting. Mid-40s, Asian woman with kind eyes and a firm handshake. Mr. Cole, thank you for being on time. Of course. Lily and her mother just arrived. I'll bring Lily in shortly, but first I want to go over some ground rules. She gestured to a small office off the main playroom. They sat in uncomfortable plastic chairs across from each other. The visits are 2 hours, Dr. Chen said. You'll have access to the playroom, which has toys, books, and games. I'll be observing from the adjacent room through the one-way window. If at any point Lily becomes uncomfortable or you cross a boundary, I'll intervene. What boundaries? No discussion of the divorce, no speaking negatively about her mother, no making promises you can't keep about future custody arrangements, no inappropriate questions about Mrs. Reed's personal life. She consulted her notes. Lily is 6 years old, and she's processing a major family disruption. Your job is to be her father for 2 hours. That's it. I understand. Do you have any questions? Can I bring her anything? Gifts? Toys? Small items are fine, but nothing extravagant. We don't want visits to become transactional. Good behavior doesn't get rewarded with presents. The goal is genuine connection. Ethan nodded. Dr. Chen stood. I'll get Lily now. She left. Through the window, Ethan could see into the waiting area. Vanessa sat reading a magazine, looking exactly like she had in court. Simple clothes, no makeup, utterly calm. Lily sat beside her, swinging her legs and coloring in a book. His daughter had grown. It had only been 2 weeks since he'd seen her, but she looked older somehow, taller. Her hair was in 2 braids instead of the ponytail he usually did. Dr. Chen appeared in the waiting room, said something to Vanessa, who nodded. Then she crouched down to Lily's level, spoke quietly. Lily looked up at the window where Ethan stood, even though she couldn't see him through the one-way glass. She didn't smile. Vanessa kissed the top of her head, squeezed her shoulder. Lily slid off the chair and took Dr. Chen's hand. They walked toward the playroom door. Ethan's heart hammered stupidly. He was about to see his daughter for the first time in 2 weeks, and he felt like he was meeting a stranger. The door opened. "Hi, Daddy," Lily said quietly. She looked so small standing there. Big brown eyes, Vanessa's eyes, staring up at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. Cautious, maybe. Uncertain. "Hey, sweetheart." Ethan knelt down to her level. "I missed you." "I missed you too." Dr. Chen gestured to the playroom. "I'll be right next door if you need anything, Lily. You two have fun." She left them alone. For a moment, neither of them moved. The playroom felt too big, too bright. A basket of toys sat in the corner. A small table with crayons and paper. Building blocks scattered across a foam mat. "Do you want to play something?" Ethan asked. Lily shrugged. "Okay." She walked over to the blocks and sat down cross-legged. Started building a tower with methodical precision. Ethan joined her, not quite knowing what to do with his hands. "How's school?" he asked. "Good." "What are you learning about?" "Butterflies." "That sounds cool." "Yeah." She placed another block. The tower wobbled but held. Ethan tried again. "How's your room at Mom's new place?" "It's big. I have my own bathroom." "Wow, that's fancy." "Yeah." Lily glanced at him. "Do you have a new place yet?" "I'm working on it." "Khloe said you were going to get a house with a pool." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Khloe isn't around anymore." "Oh." Lily added another block. "She said she was going to be my new mom." "She was wrong about that." "Okay." They built in silence for a while. Lily's tower grew taller than Ethan's. She'd always been good with spatial stuff, probably inherited his architectural brain. "Can I ask you something?" Lily said suddenly. "Of course." "Are you still mad at Mommy?" The question hit like a punch. "I'm not mad at her, sweetie." "You were mad before. I heard you yelling." Ethan closed his eyes briefly. "That was complicated. Adults sometimes argue about things that don't make sense." "Were you yelling because Mommy has a lot of money?" "Where did you hear that?" "At the courthouse. Everyone was talking about it." Lily knocked over her tower and started rebuilding. "I don't understand why it's bad that Mommy has money. Money is good, right? It means we can buy food and stuff." "It's not bad. I was just surprised." "Why?" "Because I didn't know about it." Lily looked genuinely confused. "But Mommy always had money. She bought my toys and my clothes and everything. How did you not know?" Out of the mouths of children. The simple, devastating logic of a 6-year-old pointing out that he'd been willfully blind for 8 years. "I should have paid more attention," Ethan admitted. "Mommy cries sometimes," Lily said quietly. "At night.
She thinks I'm asleep, but I hear her. The words carve something hollow in Ethan's chest. I'm sorry. It's because you left, right? That's why she's sad? It's complicated, Lily. That's what grown-ups always say when they don't want to explain things. She placed blocks with precise care. I just want you and Mommy to be happy again, like before. I know, sweetheart. Can you fix it? I don't think so. Why not? Because some things, once they're broken, they can't be put back together. Lily studied her tower. Then, deliberately, she knocked it over. Blocks scattered across the foam mat. But you can build new things. That's what you do, right? You build buildings. Yeah, so build something new. She started gathering blocks again, completely focused on her new project. Ethan watched her, this small person who somehow understood things better than he did. They played for the rest of the 2 hours. Built towers and roads and a castle that kept collapsing. Lily talked about her butterflies project, about a friend at school who collected rocks, about the penthouse having windows that showed the whole city lit up at night. It's really pretty, she said, but I miss our old apartment sometimes. It was smaller, but it felt more like home. Yeah? Yeah, because you were there. Ethan had to look away for a second. When Dr. Chen knocked on the door to signal time was up, Lily hugged him tight. I love you, Daddy. I love you too, sweetheart. So much. Will you be less sad next time? I'll try. Okay. She pulled back, looked up at him seriously. You should probably say sorry to Mommy. That's what my teacher says. When you hurt someone, you say sorry. It's more complicated than that. There you go again. But she smiled a little. Dr. Chen escorted Lily back to the waiting room. Through the window, Ethan watched Vanessa stand up immediately, arms open. Lily ran to her and buried her face in her mother's sweater. Vanessa held her close, one hand smoothing down her braids, and even from here, Ethan could see the tension leave her shoulders. She glanced toward the playroom window. Couldn't see him, but she knew he was there. Her expression didn't change. Just looked back down at Lily, said something that made their daughter nod. Then they gathered their things and left. Dr. Chen returned. How did it go? Fine. Good. Lily seems resilient. That's good to see. She made notes on a tablet. I'll be filing a report with the court about today's visit. Overall, I'd say it was positive. Lily engaged appropriately, and you respected the boundaries we discussed. Great. However, Dr. Chen looked up. I want to be frank with you, Mr. Cole. You seem depressed. That's understandable given the circumstances, but if it continues, it could affect your relationship with Lily. Children pick up on parental emotions more than we realize. I'm handling it. Are you? Because from where I'm sitting, you look like someone who hasn't slept properly in weeks. She set down the tablet. I'm going to recommend you seek individual counseling as part of your custody arrangement, not as punishment, as support. This is a difficult transition, and you deserve help navigating it. I don't need therapy. That's exactly what someone who needs therapy says. Her tone was gentle but firm. Think about it, for Lily's sake, if not your own. Ethan left without responding. The drive back to the apartment took 40 minutes in Saturday traffic. He pulled into the parking garage and sat in his car for a long time, engine off, just staring at concrete pillars and oil stains. His phone buzzed. A text from the new lawyer, Patterson. We need to meet Monday 10 a.m. to discuss repayment terms. Please confirm. Ethan confirmed. Another text, this one from his landlord. Received notice you're vacating end of month. Security deposit will be applied to last month rent. Please ensure apartment is clean for final walkthrough. He responded with a thumbs up. The phone buzzed a third time. His mother again. This time he answered. Hi, Mom. Finally. Her voice was tight with worry. I've been calling for days. Where have you been? Dealing with things. Ethan, I talked to Marcus. He said the business is closing. Why didn't you tell me? Because there's nothing you can do about it. I'm your mother. You don't get to shut me out just because things are hard. Ethan leaned his head against the steering wheel. I really can't do this right now. Then when? When were you planning to tell your family that your entire life is falling apart? It's handled. It's clearly not handled. Her voice rose. You lost custody of Lily. You lost your business. You're about to lose your home. And from what I hear, you lost all of this because you were having an affair with your assistant. Is that true? Silence. Ethan, is that true? Yes. He heard her sharp intake of breath. How could you do that to Vanessa? That girl was nothing but kind to you. She loved you. She lied to me for 8 years about who she was.
So what? She had money and didn't tell you?
Boo-hoo, Ethan. You had a wife who loved you and a beautiful daughter and a career she apparently built for you behind the scenes. And you threw it away for what? Some blonde half your age? I'm 32, Mom. I'm not ancient. You're acting like a child. She was crying now. He could hear it. Your father and I raised you better than this. We taught you about commitment, about honor, about doing the right thing even when it's hard. What happened to that person? I don't know, Ethan said honestly. I don't know anymore. His mother was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was softer. Come home. What?
Come stay with us for a while. Your old room is still here. You can figure things out, save some money, spend time with Lily when you have visitation. I'm not moving back in with my parents at 32. Pride is what got you into this mess, Ethan. Don't let it make things worse. She paused. We love you. We want to help, but you have to actually let us. I'll think about it. Think fast. You've got 3 weeks until you're homeless. She hung up. Ethan sat in the car until the parking garage lights automatically clicked on, responding to the fading daylight. Then he dragged himself upstairs, unlocked the apartment, and stood in the doorway looking at a space that had never really been his. 20 days left. He grabbed a beer from the fridge, his 7th of the day, and didn't bother counting anymore. The law office of Patterson and Associates occupied the 3rd floor of a building that had seen better decades. Peeling wallpaper in the hallway, an elevator that groaned like it resented every trip, fluorescent lights that flickered just enough to give you a headache. Ethan arrived Monday morning with 15 minutes to spare and a hangover that made his teeth hurt. The receptionist was maybe 22, chewing gum and scrolling through her phone. Name? Ethan Cole. I have a 10 o'clock with Mr. Patterson. She glanced at a schedule without much interest. Yeah, okay. He's running late. Have a seat. The waiting area had 3 plastic chairs and a coffee table covered in magazines from 2019. Ethan sat and tried not to think about the bottle of ibuprofen in his pocket that he'd already emptied that morning. 40 minutes later, a door opened and a man emerged who looked like he advertised personal injury law on bus benches. Mid-50s, cheap suit, thinning hair combed over a bald spot, briefcase held together with duct tape on one corner. Mr. Cole? Jim Patterson. His handshake was damp. Come on back. The office was smaller than a closet, dominated by a metal desk buried under paperwork. Patterson gestured to a folding chair. Sorry about the wait. Traffic was murder. It's fine. Patterson shuffled through files until he found the right one. Okay, so I reviewed the court documents Martin Webb forwarded. This is quite a situation you've got here. That's one way to put it. Your ex-wife is Vanessa Reed, as in Reed Global Technologies' Vanessa Reed, apparently. And you had no idea? No. Patterson whistled low. That's something. My ex-wife hid a gambling problem from me for 3 years, and I thought that was bad. But a whole secret identity as a billionaire CEO? He shook his head. That's next level. Ethan didn't respond. Right, so. Patterson pulled out a yellow legal pad covered in chicken scratch handwriting. The court ordered you to repay $331,847 in marital funds that you withdrew during the separation. Judge Morrison gave you 18 months, which works out to about $18,400 per month. I don't have $18,000 a month. Yeah, I figured. What's your current income situation? I don't have one. My firm just dissolved. Patterson's pen paused. You're unemployed? As of last Friday. Okay. That's okay. He made a note. What about assets, savings, investments, anything we can liquidate? I've got about $6,000 left in my personal account. Everything else is gone. Car? Leased, and I'm 2 months behind on payments. Property? The apartment I'm in belongs to her. I have to be out in 19 days. Patterson set down his pen and looked at Ethan with something approaching pity. You know what? I'm just going to be straight with you. This repayment schedule is impossible given your current situation. You'd need a 6-figure income to make those monthly payments, and even then you'd be living on ramen. So what do? We file for a modification, argue that the original terms were set before the full extent of your financial collapse was apparent. Ask the judge to reduce the monthly amount or extend the timeline. Will it work? Patterson shrugged. Maybe, maybe not. Depends on how sympathetic Judge Morrison is feeling. And based on what I read in the transcript, she wasn't exactly your biggest fan. Ethan rubbed his temples. The headache was getting worse. What happens if I can't pay at all? Contempt of court. They can garnish any wages you eventually earn, seize assets, potentially even jail time if they think you're deliberately avoiding payment. Jail? It's rare but possible. More likely they'll just make your life miserable until you come up with the money. Patterson leaned back in his chair, which squeaked in protest. Look, I'll file the modification request this week. In the meantime, you need to find work. Any work. Even if it's not in architecture. Just something to show the court you're making a good faith effort. I'm an architect. That's what I do. You're an unemployed architect with a reputation problem. Right now, you're a guy who needs a paycheck. Patterson's tone wasn't unkind, just matter of fact. Pride doesn't pay child support, Mr. Cole. The appointment lasted another 20 minutes, most of it Patterson explaining legal procedures that Ethan barely absorbed. He signed some papers, authorized the filing, and left with a copy of the modification request and a bill for $500 just for the consultation. Outside, the November air had turned cold. Ethan walked 3 blocks to where he'd parked, feeding the meter with quarters he'd scrounged from the cup holder. His car, the sleek gray Audi he'd leased 2 years ago during a particularly good quarter, looked out of place among the beat-up sedans and minivans. He sat behind the wheel and pulled out his phone. Opened his email. The inbox was a disaster zone of overdue notices, terminated contracts, and creditors demanding payment. He scrolled past all of it to a message from 3 days ago that he'd read probably 50 times. From Dr. Sarah Chen. Subject: Visitation Report. Lily Cole. The report was mostly positive. Lily had engaged appropriately. Ethan had respected boundaries, no concerning behavior observed. But the last paragraph stuck with him. However, I must note that Mr. Cole appeared to be struggling with depression and possibly substance use. While he denied drinking, there were observable signs that concern me. I recommend mandatory counseling as a condition of continued visitation. A follow-up evaluation will be scheduled for the next visit. Substance use. That's what they called it now. Like he was some addict instead of a guy having a few beers to take the edge off. Except it wasn't a few anymore, was it? Last night he'd killed a 12-pack and barely felt it. This morning he'd seriously considered vodka in his coffee just to stop his hands from shaking. His phone rang. Unknown number again. He almost declined, but something made him answer. Ethan Cole? Yeah. This is Amanda Price from Metro Business Review. I'm working on a story about Reed Global Technologies and their CEO, Vanessa Reed. I understand you were married to her? Ethan's stomach sank. No comment. I just have a few questions about... He hung up. 30 seconds later, another call. Different number. Mr. Cole, this is Brad Chen from Tech Insider. We're doing a piece on... Hung up again. A text message appeared. Then another. Then 5 more in rapid succession. Journalists, bloggers, someone claiming to represent a podcast about corporate scandals. His phone started ringing continuously. He powered it off and threw it in the passenger seat. This was it then. The story was going public. Billionaire CEO's secret marriage to an architect who didn't know who she was. It was tabloid gold. By tomorrow, his face would be plastered across business websites and gossip blogs. The guy too stupid to realize his wife ran a tech empire. He started the car and drove aimlessly, no destination in mind. Ended up in a neighborhood he didn't recognize, parked outside a bar called the Rusted Anchor. It was barely noon, but the neon open sign glowed invitingly. Ethan sat there for 10 minutes, engine running, arguing with himself. Then he turned off the car and went inside. The bar was empty except for 2 old men playing pool in the back and a bartender who looked like she'd rather be anywhere else. Ethan took a stool at the counter. What can I get you? The bartender had bleached blonde hair and a nose ring. Whiskey? Neat. She poured without comment. Ethan drank it in 2 swallows and pushed the glass back. Another. Rough day? Rough month. She poured again. This time Ethan sipped it slower, letting the burn settle in his chest. The bar smelled like old cigarettes and pine sol. A TV in the corner played a football game with the sound off. You waiting for someone or drinking alone? The bartender asked. Does it matter? Not really, just making conversation. Ethan took another drink. Alone. Those are the best kind of customers. Don't have to pretend to care about your problems. Despite everything, Ethan almost smiled. That's refreshingly honest. I'm a refreshingly honest person. She wiped down the counter. Name's Kelly. Ethan. Well, Ethan, I'm going to give you some unsolicited advice because you look like you need it. Whatever you're drinking away right now, it'll still be there when you sober up. Might as well face it with a clear head. You moonlight as a therapist? Nah, just been on the other side of that glass enough times to recognize the look. She moved down the bar to check on the pool players. Ethan finished his second whiskey and ordered a third. By the time he left 2 hours later, he'd had 5 and could barely feel his face. The drive home was a blur of red lights and half-remembered turns. He made it to the apartment somehow, parked crooked across 2 spaces, and stumbled upstairs. The apartment was exactly how he'd left it. Half-packed boxes, furniture that wasn't his, evidence of a life that had never really existed. He collapsed on the couch and passed out still wearing his shoes. When he woke up, it was dark outside and someone was pounding on the door. Ethan dragged himself upright, head spinning, mouth tasting like battery acid. The pounding continued. Mr. Cole, I know you're in there. He opened the door. A short man in an ill-fitting suit stood there holding a clipboard. Ethan Cole? Yeah. You've been served. The man shoved papers into Ethan's hands and walked away before he could respond. Ethan looked down at the documents. Motion to accelerate debt repayment, filed by Richard Hale on behalf of Vanessa Reed. He scanned the legalese, brain still foggy from whiskey and sleep. They were asking the court to demand immediate repayment based on evidence that Ethan was deliberately depleting his assets and had made no effort to secure employment. If granted, they could start seizing whatever he had left right now, instead of waiting 18 months. There was a hearing scheduled for next week. Ethan closed the door and let the papers fall to the floor. He walked to the kitchen, opened the fridge, and stared at the remaining beer. 6 bottles left. He took one and walked to the window. The city stretched out below, thousands of lights representing thousands of lives. People coming home from work, making dinner, helping kids with homework. Normal things, simple things. Somewhere out there, Vanessa was putting Lily to bed in their penthouse, reading stories, tucking her in, being the parent Ethan was supposed to be. His phone, he'd turned it back on at some point, buzzed with a notification. An email from his mother. Your father and I talked. The offer stands. Come home. We'll help you figure this out. You don't have to do this alone. He deleted it without responding. Another email, this one from Marcus Chen. Saw the news articles. Reporters have been calling the old office number. I'm not talking to them, but thought you should know it's everywhere. Sorry, man. Ethan opened his browser and searched his own name. The results made his stomach drop. Architect discovers wife's secret billionaire identity during divorce. Business Insider. The marriage that hid a fortune. Inside Vanessa Reed's double life. TechCrunch. Reed Global CEO's ex-husband speaks out. Wait, he won't talk to us. Gawker. How one man didn't notice his wife was worth $40 billion. Forbes. There was a photo of him leaving the courthouse looking shell-shocked. Another of Vanessa from some corporate event, poised and professional in a way he'd never seen her. Side-by-side comparisons of Victoria Hayes, the CEO, and Vanessa Reed, the housewife. The comment sections were brutal. How do you not know your own wife is a billionaire? Was he blind or just stupid? She probably kept it secret because she knew he was a cheating scumbag. Imagine throwing away a marriage to someone worth $40 billion for your assistant. That's next level dumb. Feel bad for the daughter. Dad's a moron and mom had to hide her entire identity. What a mess. Ethan closed the browser, finished the beer, opened another. By the time he passed out again, it was 3 a.m. and he'd finished all 6 bottles. His dreams were chaotic, courthouse scenes mixed with memories of Vanessa laughing in their kitchen, mixed with Khloe leaving, mixed with Lily asking why he was always sad. He woke up Tuesday morning to his phone ringing. Patterson. Yeah, Ethan croaked. Did you get served yesterday? Uh-huh. I'm looking at the motion now. This is bad, Ethan. They're claiming you're not acting in good faith, that you've been drinking heavily, missed job interviews, made no effort to stabilize your situation. I haven't missed any job interviews. Have you applied for any jobs? Silence. Right, that's what I thought. Patterson sighed. Look, we need to show the court you're trying, today, not next week, not tomorrow. Today. I need you to apply for at least 10 jobs, document everything, and send me proof by end of business. What kind of jobs? Any jobs. Architecture firms, design companies, construction, teaching, consulting, I don't care. Just show effort. Fine. And Ethan, sober up. I'm serious. If you show up to that hearing looking like you've been on a bender, we're done. Judge Morrison will accelerate that debt, and you'll be paying it off for the rest of your natural life. Patterson hung up. Ethan forced himself into the shower. The hot water helped marginally with the hangover, but couldn't touch the deeper exhaustion that had settled into his bones. He shaved, nicked himself twice, and put on the same shirt from yesterday because he hadn't done laundry in 2 weeks. His laptop was buried under newspapers on the kitchen table. He dug it out and opened job search websites. The architecture firms were a wasteland. Every listing either required references he didn't have or worked with contractors who'd already heard about his firm's collapse. He applied anyway, uploading his resume to positions he knew he'd never get. After an hour, he'd submitted applications to 7 architecture firms, 2 design consultancies, and a construction company looking for a project manager. None of them would call back. He needed something else, something that didn't require professional references or a sterling reputation. Ethan scrolled through general job listings. Retail management at a sporting goods store. Assistant manager at a furniture warehouse. Inventory coordinator at a medical supply company. None of it was architecture, but Patterson was right. Pride didn't pay bills. By afternoon, he'd applied to 23 jobs ranging from project coordinator to sales associate. He documented everything in a spreadsheet and emailed it to Patterson with screenshots as proof. Then he sat back and stared at the laptop screen, at his own reflection in the black glass. When had he started looking so old? There were lines around his eyes that hadn't been there a year ago, gray in his stubble. He was 32 but looked 40. His phone rang. A number he actually recognized, his old colleague, Tom Bradley. Tom? Hey man, I heard about the firm. I'm sorry. Yeah, well, it is what it is. Listen, I know this is probably awkward, but I wanted to give you a heads up. Our firm is hiring a junior designer. Entry level, not much pay, but it's architecture work. I could put in a word if you're interested. Ethan sat up straighter. Seriously? Yeah, I mean, you'd be taking a massive step down from partner, and the salary is probably half what you're used to, but I'll take it. Whatever it is, I'll take it. Tom paused. You haven't even heard the details. I don't care. I need work, Tom. I'm desperate here. Okay, let me talk to my boss. I'll call you back. For the first time in weeks, Ethan felt something that might have been hope. It was small and fragile, but it was there. A junior designer position wasn't much, but it was architecture. It was something. He spent the rest of the afternoon cleaning the apartment, motivated by the possibility that maybe, just maybe, things could start turning around. He packed 3 more boxes, did the dishes, threw away the empty beer bottles that had accumulated under the coffee table. Tom called back at 6. Good news and bad news, he said. Ethan's stomach tightened. Give me the good news first. My boss is willing to interview you. He remembers your work from a few years ago and was impressed. And the bad news? He Googled you, found all the articles about your divorce. Tom's voice was apologetic. He's concerned about the publicity, worried it might affect client relationships. Tom, I swear, none of that will... I know, man. I believe you. But he wants assurances, references from recent projects, evidence that you're stable, that kind of thing. I don't have recent projects. My firm dissolved. Yeah, that's the problem. Tom was quiet for a moment. Look, I'm still pushing for you. The interview is scheduled for Thursday at 2. Show up, be professional, convince him you're not a liability. That's all you can do. I'll be there. Thank you, Tom. Seriously. Don't thank me yet. This is a long shot. Thursday. That gave him 2 days to prepare. 2 days to somehow transform from a tabloid punchline into a hireable architect. He pulled up the articles again, forcing himself to read through them. Most were sensationalized garbage, but a few had actual details: corporate timelines showing when Vanessa took over as CEO, financial records of Reed Global's growth, quotes from industry analysts about her business acumen. One article included an interview with someone identified as a former colleague of Victoria Hayes. She was brilliant but incredibly private, never talked about her personal life. We all assumed she was single, maybe married to the job. Finding out she had this whole separate identity as a suburban housewife was shocking. But it makes sense in a way. She never wanted to be treated differently because of her name or wealth. She wanted to be judged on her merit. Another quote, this one from Alexander Reed, Vanessa's brother. "My sister is one of the most genuine people I know. Everything she's accomplished, she earned. Our father left her a company, sure, but she transformed it into what it is today. And yes, she hid her marriage from the business world. Can you blame her? She wanted one part of her life that was real. Turns out even that got taken from her." The subtle accusation in that last line wasn't lost on Ethan. He closed the laptop and walked to the window again. It had become a habit, standing here, looking out at the city like it might offer answers. Somewhere out there, Vanessa was living a life he'd never really known. She had a penthouse, a corporate empire, resources beyond his comprehension, and he'd treated her like she was nothing. His phone buzzed, a text from Dr. Chen. Next visitation scheduled for Saturday, 2 p.m. Please confirm you'll attend. Ethan confirmed. Another text appeared immediately after. Also wanted to let you know Lily asked about you yesterday during our session. She wanted to make sure you weren't too sad. I think regular communication would help. Would you like me to arrange scheduled phone calls? Something in Ethan's chest cracked open. His 6-year-old daughter was worried about him being sad. She should be thinking about butterflies and rocks and playground games, not her father's emotional state. Yes, please, he typed back. Whatever works. The response came quickly. Great. I'll coordinate with Mrs. Reed and set up a schedule. Take care of yourself, Mr. Cole. That night, Ethan didn't drink. He made himself a sandwich, forced it down even though he wasn't hungry, and went to bed at a reasonable hour. Woke up Wednesday morning without a hangover for the first time in weeks. He spent the day preparing for the interview, researched Tom's firm, reviewed his portfolio, practiced answers to questions they might ask. Why did your business fail? Why should we hire you despite the publicity? What can you bring to our team? The answers were harder than the questions. Thursday arrived cold and drizzling. Ethan put on his best suit, the charcoal one he'd worn to pitch the Riverside project 3 years ago, and drove downtown. Tom's firm occupied the 15th floor of a glass building near the financial district. The receptionist was professional but cool. Mr. Cole? They're ready for you. She led him to a conference room where 3 people waited. Tom gave him an encouraging nod. The other 2, a woman in her 40s and a man who looked barely 30, studied him with neutral expressions. Ethan Cole, the woman said, shaking his hand. I'm Jennifer Park, senior partner. This is David Sullivan, our creative director. Thanks for seeing me. They sat. Jennifer opened a folder. We've reviewed your portfolio. Your work is impressive, particularly the Riverside Commercial Center. That was a complex project. Thank you. However, her tone shifted. We need to address the elephant in the room. Your firm dissolved under circumstances that have received significant media attention. Can you speak to that? Here it was. The moment where he either salvaged this or lost it completely. My firm dissolved because I made serious personal mistakes that affected my professional relationships, Ethan said carefully. I damaged my reputation through my own choices. I'm not going to pretend otherwise or make excuses. What I can tell you is that I'm a good architect. My work speaks for itself, and I'm committed to rebuilding my career the right way this time. David leaned forward. The publicity could be a problem for us. We have high-profile clients who value discretion. I understand that, but the media cycle moves fast. Give it another month, and they'll be focused on someone else's personal drama. What won't change is my ability to design buildings. Jennifer made notes. This position is entry-level. You'd be reporting to senior designers, working on projects that frankly are beneath your experience level. Can you handle that? Yes? You were a partner at your own firm. Now you'd be taking direction from people half your age. That's not going to bruise your ego. My ego is what got me here. I'm done letting it make decisions. Tom spoke up. I've worked with Ethan before. He's talented and he works hard. Everyone makes mistakes. He deserves a second chance.
Jennifer looked at Ethan for a long moment. The salary is $52,000 a year. No benefits for the first 6 months. Standard 9-to-6 schedule with overtime as needed. Are those terms acceptable? $52,000 was less than he used to spend on a good month of client dinners, but it was a paycheck. It was architecture. Yes, Ethan said. Absolutely. We'll need to run a background check, verify your credentials, check references. Of course.
If everything clears, you can start 2 weeks from Monday, assuming you're still interested. I am. Thank you for the opportunity. The meeting ended shortly after. Tom walked him to the elevator. You did good, Tom said. Think they'll actually hire me? Jennifer's tough but fair. If your background check is clean and your references don't torpedo you. Yeah, I think so. The elevator dinged. Ethan stepped inside. I owe you one, Tom. Just don't screw it up. I vouched for you. If you flame out again, it reflects on me too. I won't, I promise. The doors closed on Tom's skeptical expression. Ethan drove back to the apartment in a daze. $52,000 a year. It was barely enough to live on, especially with the debt repayment hanging over his head. But it was something, a starting point. He called Patterson immediately. I have an interview follow-up, Ethan said. Potential job offer pending background check. Junior designer position at Westbrook & Associates. That's great news. Send me the details and I'll include it in our response to the acceleration motion. What are our chances? Better than they were yesterday. Still not great, but better. Patterson paused. Keep applying for backup options. One potential offer isn't enough to convince the court you're serious. Ethan spent the rest of Thursday and all of Friday submitting more applications. By Saturday morning, he'd applied to 47 different positions. Most would never respond. A few might lead to interviews. One, maybe, would become an actual job. The visitation with Lily went smoother than the first. She seemed more relaxed, less guarded. They built another block tower, this one even more elaborate. She told him about a new friend at school named Emma who had a hamster. Can I get a hamster? Lily asked. You'd have to ask your mom about that. She said maybe for my birthday. That's in 3 months. I know when your birthday is, sweetheart. Will you be there? For my party? The question hit him sideways. I hope so. Mommy said you're working on some grown-up stuff and it's complicated, but I think you should come because it's not a real party without both parents. Ethan had to swallow hard before responding. I'll do everything I can to be there. Okay, good. She went back to building. Emma's parents are divorced too. She says it's not that bad once you get used to it. You just have 2 houses and 2 Christmases. Yeah? Yeah. But she said the hard part is when they're mean to each other. Her dad says bad things about her mom sometimes, and it makes her sad. Lily looked up at him. You won't do that, right? Say bad things about mommy? No, baby. I won't. Good. Because mommy doesn't say bad things about you, even though I think maybe she wants to sometimes. Out of the mouths of children again. That simple, devastating honesty that cut right through everything. When visitation ended, Lily hugged him extra tight. Love you, Daddy. Love you too. Dr. Chen said we can talk on the phone now, on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I'd like that a lot. Me too. I want to tell you about the butterflies when they come out of their chrysalises. We're growing them in our classroom. I can't wait to hear about it. Dr. Chen walked Lily back to the waiting room. Through the window, Ethan watched his daughter run to Vanessa and start talking animatedly, hands gesturing as she described their visit. Vanessa listened with complete attention, nodding, smiling at something Lily said. She looked different than she had in court. Softer. She was wearing jeans and a simple sweater, her hair down instead of pulled back. She looked like the woman who used to make lopsided birthday cakes and have water fights in the kitchen. For just a second, her eyes lifted toward the window. She couldn't see him, but once again she seemed to know he was there. Then she took Lily's hand and they left. Dr. Chen returned. She seems happy today. Yeah. How are you doing, Mr. Cole? Better. I have a potential job lined up. That's wonderful. Employment stability will help with the custody evaluation. She made notes. I'm also pleased to report that Lily seems to be adjusting well overall. Children are resilient. As long as both parents continue to prioritize her well-being, she'll be fine. What about the phone calls? Tuesday and Thursday evenings at 7, 15 minutes each. I'll send you the dial-in information. Mrs. Reed has agreed to facilitate from her end. Ethan left the family services building and sat in his car for a while, watching people come and go. Families entering for court-ordered visitations. Divorced parents exchanging kids in the parking lot. Social workers carrying clipboards and tired expressions. This was his life now. Supervised visits and phone call schedules and lawyers arguing over payment plans. He drove back to the apartment and spent the weekend finishing the packing. By Sunday night, everything he owned fit into 12 boxes and 2 suitcases. Pathetic, really. 32 years of life condensed into less than a dozen cardboard containers. Monday morning, his phone rang. Jennifer Park. Mr. Cole, your background check came back clean. We'd like to extend an offer for the junior designer position. Can you start November 28th? Ethan almost dropped the phone. Yes, absolutely yes. Excellent. I'll have HR send over the paperwork. Welcome to Westbrook and Associates. He called Patterson immediately with the news. Then Tom, to thank him again. Then he sat on his mostly empty couch and let himself feel something approaching relief. It wasn't much. $52,000 a year, entry-level position, working for people younger than him. But it was a foothold, a way back. Tuesday evening at 7, his phone rang with a number he didn't recognize. Hello? Daddy! Lily's voice was bright with excitement. Guess what? Our butterflies came out today. Really? What do they look like? They're orange and black and really pretty. Mrs. Johnson said they're called monarchs. We're going to release them tomorrow at recess. They talked for 15 minutes about butterflies and school and nothing particularly important, just a father and daughter chatting about their days. When Lily said goodbye, Ethan heard Vanessa's voice in the background. Good job, sweetheart. You can call Daddy again on Thursday. Then the line went dead. Ethan sat holding the phone, staring at nothing, feeling the weight of everything he'd lost settle over him like a blanket. But underneath that weight was something else. Something small but growing. The possibility that maybe, eventually, he could build something new from the ruins of everything he'd destroyed. The hearing for the debt acceleration was scheduled for Wednesday morning. Ethan showed up in his interview suit, freshly shaved, sober, carrying a folder full of job applications and the offer letter from Westbrook and Associates. Patterson met him outside the courtroom. Remember, let me do the talking. If the judge asks you a direct question, answer honestly but briefly. Don't volunteer information. Got it. They entered. Vanessa was already there with Richard Hale, looking composed and professional in a navy suit that probably cost more than Ethan's car. She didn't acknowledge his presence. Judge Morrison took the bench. We're here regarding the motion to accelerate debt repayment in the matter of Cole versus Reed. Mr. Hale, you filed this motion. State your case. Hale stood. Your Honor, Mrs. Reed filed this motion because Mr. Cole has made no good faith effort to repay the debt as ordered. He's unemployed, has been drinking heavily, and appears to be deliberately depleting his remaining assets rather than working toward repayment. Mr. Patterson? Patterson stood. Your Honor, Mr. Cole has been actively seeking employment. He's submitted applications to 47 different positions in the past week and has secured a job offer starting later this month. He handed up the documentation. Judge Morrison reviewed it. This offer is for $52,000 annually. The ordered repayment is over $330,000. How exactly does Mr. Cole plan to make the monthly payments? We're requesting a modification to the repayment schedule based on Mr. Cole's current financial reality. The original timeline was set before the full extent of his situation was known. The original timeline was set less than a month ago, Mr. Patterson. Mr. Cole's unemployment is a direct result of his own choices. Nevertheless, Your Honor, he can't pay what he doesn't have. Accelerating the debt won't change that. What it will do is prevent him from rebuilding his life and ultimately being able to make payments at all. Judge Morrison looked at Ethan directly. Mr. Cole, stand up. He stood. Have you been drinking? Not today, Your Honor. But you have been drinking, regularly. Ethan hesitated. Lying under oath was a terrible idea. Yes, Your Honor, more than I should have been. Are you seeking help for that? I'm working on it.
That's not an answer. Are you in counseling, AA, anything? Not yet, but I will be.
Judge Morrison's expression was unreadable. You have a 6-year-old daughter who needs her father to be stable and present. You have a debt you're legally obligated to repay. You have an ex-wife who, despite everything you put her through, hasn't tried to destroy you completely, even though she clearly has the resources to do so. Do you understand how fortunate you are in that regard?
Yes, Your Honor. Then act like it. I'm denying the motion to accelerate, but I'm also modifying the repayment schedule.
You'll pay $1,000 per month for the first year while you stabilize your employment. After 12 months, we'll revisit and adjust based on your income at that time. Miss a single payment, and I'll grant Mrs. Reed's motion immediately. Understood?
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you.
Don't thank me. Thank your ex-wife. She could have pushed for immediate repayment and buried you financially. She chose not to. Maybe think about why that is. The gavel came down. Outside the courtroom, Ethan tried to approach Vanessa, but Hale stepped between them. Mrs. Reed has nothing to say to you, Mr. Cole. I just wanted to thank her for not ruining you the way you tried to ruin her. Hale's voice was cold. You're welcome. Now, stay away from my client except as required for custody arrangements. Vanessa stood behind her attorney, expression neutral. For a moment their eyes met. Ethan tried to find words, any words that might convey the complicated mess of regret and gratitude and shame churning in his chest. But before he could speak, she turned and walked away. Ethan's mother opened the door before he'd even gotten out of the car. She stood on the porch of the house he'd grown up in, arms crossed against the December cold, watching him unload boxes with an expression somewhere between relief and I told you so. You need help? She called. I've got it. Don't be stubborn. She came down the steps anyway, grabbing one of the lighter boxes. Your father's at the hardware store, but he'll be back soon. The house looked exactly the same as it had when Ethan left for college 14 years ago. Same beige siding, same crooked mailbox his father kept meaning to fix, same basketball hoop in the driveway with a net that had rotted away sometime in 2015. His childhood bedroom still had posters of bands he'd stopped listening to a decade ago. It took 4 trips to unload everything. 12 boxes and 2 suitcases representing his entire life now fit comfortably in a room that still had his high school swim team trophies on the shelf. I made up the bed with fresh sheets, his mother said, hovering in the doorway. There's towels in the bathroom. Dinner's at 6. Thanks, Mom. How long do you think you'll need to stay? I don't know. A few months maybe, just until I save enough for a deposit on my own place. She nodded, but her expression said she knew it would be longer than that. Your father and I talked. We're not going to charge you rent, but we expect you to help around the house. Yard work, repairs, that kind of thing. Of course. And Ethan? She stepped into the room. No drinking. I'm serious. Not in this house. His face heated. How did you, A mother knows. I could hear it in your voice every time we talked. Her tone softened. I don't know what you've been going through, and I'm not going to pretend I understand all of it. But whatever you're using alcohol to forget, it'll still be there in the morning. Deal with it sober. Ethan couldn't meet her eyes. Okay? I mean it. I know. I will. She studied him for a long moment, then nodded and left him alone. Ethan sat on the bed, the same bed he'd slept in from age 8 to 18, and looked around at the remnants of a person he barely recognized. There was the desk where he'd done homework and applied to colleges, the window he'd snuck out of twice in high school to meet friends, the closet where he'd hidden magazines his parents wouldn't approve of. Being 32 years old and living in your childhood bedroom was humiliating in ways he hadn't anticipated. But it was free, and right now free was all he could afford. His phone buzzed, a text from Tom. First day tomorrow, don't be late. Jennifer doesn't do second chances. Ethan set an alarm for 5:30 a.m., then another for 5:45 just in case. He unpacked enough to find clean clothes for tomorrow and hung his suit in the closet next to a Letterman jacket from high school that his mother had apparently saved. Dinner was awkward. His father, a man of few words on good days, said even less than usual, focusing intently on his pot roast while Ethan's mother filled the silence with questions about the new job, the apartment he'd left, whether he'd talked to Lily recently. We have phone calls scheduled twice a week, Ethan said. That's good. That's important. His mother passed the potatoes. Have you thought about what you're going to do for Christmas? That's only 3 weeks away. Ethan hadn't thought about Christmas at all. I don't know, depends on the custody schedule. Well, if you have Lily, she's welcome here. We'd love to see our granddaughter. A pause. We haven't seen her since the separation.
The accusation was gentle, but unmistakable. Ethan had been so wrapped up in his own disaster that he'd essentially cut his parents off from their only grandchild. "I'll see what I can arrange," he said. His father finally spoke. "Heard you got a job." "Yeah, start tomorrow." "What's the pay?" $52,000.
His father's expression didn't change, but Ethan saw the calculation happen. His dad had worked construction for 40 years and retired on a pension that barely covered expenses. $52,000 probably seemed reasonable to him. He didn't know that Ethan used to make 6 times that. "Honest work," his father said finally. "That's what matters." They finished dinner in relative silence. Ethan helped clean up, then retreated to his room. He tried to sleep, but his brain wouldn't shut off. Tomorrow was a fresh start. A chance to prove he could do this, that he wasn't completely broken. At some point, exhaustion won. He woke to his alarm at 5:30, stumbled through a shower, and was dressed and caffeinated by 6:15. The office was a 40-minute drive in rush hour traffic. Westbrook and Associates occupied 3 floors of a modern building in the business district. The lobby had the kind of minimalist design that screamed expensive, all clean lines and expensive materials and perfectly positioned plants. Ethan checked in with security and was directed to the 15th floor. Tom met him at the elevator. "You made it. Told you I would? Come on, I'll show you your desk." The office was open plan. Dozens of workstations arranged in clusters with glass-walled conference rooms along the perimeter. Young designers hunched over computers, sketching, modeling, talking in clusters. Everyone looked focused and competent, and at least 10 years younger than Ethan. Tom led him to a desk near the back. "This is you. Computer password is taped under the keyboard. I'll get you set up with access to the shared drives after orientation." The desk was standard corporate issue. Laminate surface, mesh chair, 2 monitors. Nothing like the mahogany desk and leather chair he'd had as partner. But it was his, and that was enough. "HR orientation is at 9 in conference room C," Tom said. "Until then, familiarize yourself with our current projects. I sent you some files to review." The morning was a blur of paperwork and policies, sexual harassment training, benefits enrollment, safety protocols. By lunch, Ethan's head was swimming with information, and his imposter syndrome was in full force. He ate alone in the building cafeteria, watching groups of coworkers laugh and chat at their tables. No one approached him. Either they didn't know who he was, or they knew exactly who he was and were avoiding the mess. Afternoon brought his first actual assignment. A senior designer named Rachel Kim stopped by his desk. "You're Cole, right?" "Ethan, yeah." "I need elevations drawn for the Henderson Street project. Can you handle that?" It was grunt work, the kind of thing interns usually did. But Ethan nodded. "Sure, send me the specs." "Great. I need them by Thursday." She was gone before he could ask questions. Ethan pulled up the project files and got to work. Drawing elevations was mindless, mechanical, converting conceptual designs into technical drawings that contractors could use. He'd done it thousands of times early in his career. It felt good, actually. Simple and straightforward. No client politics, no budget battles, no partner disagreements. Just clean lines and precise measurements. By the time 5:30 rolled around, Ethan had made significant progress. He saved his work and logged off, noticed most of the office had already cleared out. Tom stopped by on his way out. "How was day 1? "Good. Fine." "Rachel giving you elevation work?" "Yeah." Tom winced. "Sorry, man. That's pretty basic stuff for someone with your experience." "It's fine. I'm here to work, not complain about assignments." "Good attitude. Keep that up." Tom grabbed his bag. "You coming to happy hour Friday? Whole office goes to McGinty's across the street." "Maybe. I'll see." "You should come. Good way to meet people." After Tom left, Ethan sat in the empty office for a few more minutes. The city stretched out beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows, lights beginning to flicker on as dusk settled. Somewhere out there, Vanessa was probably leaving her own office, going home to Lily, helping with homework, making dinner, living the life that used to be his. His phone buzzed with a reminder. Call with Lily at 7 p.m. Ethan packed up and drove back to his parents' house through rush hour traffic. Dinner was leftovers eaten mostly in silence. At 6:55, he retreated to his room and dialed the number Dr. Chen had provided. Lily answered on the second ring. Daddy. Hey, sweetheart. How was school? Good. We released the butterflies today. They flew away and Mrs. Johnson said they're going to Mexico. That's a long flight for a butterfly.
I know. They're really strong, though. We learned about their migration patterns. She pronounced the words carefully, proud of the big vocabulary. What did you do today? I started my new job. Was it fun? It was good. Different from my old job, but good. Mommy said you're living with Grandma and Grandpa now. Yeah, for a little while. Can I visit? I haven't seen them in forever.
Forever to a 6-year-old was probably 6 months. I'd like that. Let me talk to your mom about arranging it. Okay. Papers rustled in the background. I drew you a picture of the butterflies. Mommy said we can mail it to you. I'd love that. They talked about small things until Vanessa's voice cut in gently.
2 more minutes, sweetie. Lily sighed dramatically. Mommy says I have to go soon, but I love you, Daddy. I love you too, baby. So much. Will I see you Saturday?
Absolutely.
Good.
Bye. The line went dead. Ethan sat holding the phone, feeling the familiar ache that came with these calls. Grateful for the connection, but devastated by how little time he got. The week settled into a rhythm. Wake up early, commute to the office, work on whatever assignments senior designers threw his way, come home to his parents' house, eat dinner in uncomfortable silence, call Lily on Tuesday and Thursday, attend supervised visitation on Saturday. It was monotonous and humbling and nothing like the life he'd planned. But it was stable. And after months of chaos, stable felt revolutionary. Friday afternoon, Rachel stopped by his desk again. Elevations look good. Jennifer wants you on the Lakewood project next. It's a residential development, pretty straightforward. Great, thanks. You coming to happy hour tonight? Ethan hesitated. A bar full of coworkers who probably knew about his divorce wasn't appealing. But Tom had suggested it would help him integrate, and hiding wouldn't make things better. Yeah, I'll be there. McGinty's was packed by the time Ethan arrived at 6. The Westbrook crowd had claimed a corner section, tables pushed together, drinks flowing. He ordered a club soda at the bar, his mother's warning still echoing, and joined the group. Cole, Rachel waved him over. Grab a seat. You know everyone? He didn't, but people introduced themselves. Junior designers, project managers, a few senior partners. The conversation flowed around him. Office gossip, client complaints, weekend plans. Ethan nursed his club soda and tried to follow along. So what's your story? A designer named Marcus asked. Tom said you had your own firm before this? Here it was, the question Ethan had been dreading. Yeah, it didn't work out. Why not? Personal issues complicated things. The firm dissolved a few months ago. That's rough. Marcus took a drink of his beer. You married? Divorced. Kids? A daughter. She's 6. Rachel jumped in, clearly trying to redirect. Ethan's been doing great work on the Henderson elevations. Really clean technical drawings. Thanks, Ethan said, grateful for the subject change. The evening progressed. People got progressively drunker while Ethan stayed sober and increasingly aware of how much he didn't fit in. These were kids in their 20s celebrating the weekend. He was a 32-year-old divorced father living with his parents. By 8, he'd had enough. I'm going to head out. See you all Monday. A chorus of goodbyes followed him out. On the drive home, Ethan felt the familiar pull toward a liquor store. It would be so easy to stop, grab a bottle, drink until the sharp edges of his life softened. But his mother's words stopped him. It'll still be there in the morning. He drove past the liquor store and went home. Saturday's visitation went well. Lily brought the butterfly picture she'd promised, a crayon drawing of orange and black wings that Ethan carefully folded and put in his wallet. They played board games this time, Candyland and Chutes and Ladders. Simple kid stuff that made Lily laugh. Mommy's birthday is next week, Lily mentioned as they played. She's going to be 31. Ethan had forgotten. December 12th. They used to celebrate with quiet dinners, just the two of them while Lily stayed with a sitter. Nothing extravagant. Vanessa had always preferred low-key celebrations. Are you doing anything special? Ethan asked. Uncle Alexander is taking us to a fancy restaurant. He said I can order whatever I want. Uncle Alexander. Vanessa's brother, the one who'd shown up at the courthouse with lawyers and security. Ethan had never met him during the marriage, another piece of Vanessa's secret life he'd been excluded from. That sounds fun. Yeah. I wish you could come too, though. It's weird having birthdays without you. The innocent observation landed like a punch. I know, sweetheart. Maybe next year? Maybe. When visitation ended, Ethan watched Lily run to Vanessa through the one-way glass, saw his ex-wife smile and kneel down to examine the drawing Lily had made during their session, saw them leave together, hands linked, a unit of two where there used to be three. Dr. Chen appeared at his shoulder. The holidays are coming up. Have you thought about the schedule? Not really. Christmas is complicated for separated families. I'd recommend getting ahead of it. Talk to Mrs. Reed's attorney about arranging something for Lily before it becomes contentious. Right. Yeah, I'll do that. But the conversation with Richard Hale went about as well as expected. Mr. Cole, my client has made it clear she's willing to facilitate reasonable holiday visitation within the court's guidelines. However, given that your visits are still supervised, overnight stays are not possible. What about Christmas morning? Can I at least see her open presents? That's a personal family time, Mr. Cole. Mrs. Reed would prefer to maintain that privacy. She's my daughter, too. And you should have thought about that before you blew up your family. Hale's voice was sharp. You get your supervised 2 hours on the Saturday before Christmas. That's what the court ordered. If you want more, petition for a modification, and we'll see you in court. Hale hung up. Ethan stared at his phone, feeling the unfairness of it burn in his chest. But what could he do? The lawyer was right. This was what he'd earned through his own choices. He called his mother. Lily can't come for Christmas. The custody arrangement doesn't allow it. Oh, honey? She sounded genuinely sad. That's hard. I'm sorry. Yeah. Well, you'll be here with us at least. We'll make it nice. Christmas with his parents at 32, without his daughter. Felt pathetic. But again, what choice did he have? The second week of work was easier than the first. Ethan started learning the office rhythms, figuring out which senior designers gave clear instructions and which expected mind reading. The work was basic, but he threw himself into it, staying late to polish drawings that didn't need polishing. Jennifer noticed during a team meeting, Ethan, the detail work on Lakewood is exceptional, really thorough. It was the first genuine praise he'd received in months. Thank you. Keep it up. Small victories. They added up. On Tuesday, Lily's scheduled call came in different than usual. She sounded congested, her voice scratchy. I'm sick, she announced. I have a cold and my throat hurts. I'm sorry, baby. Are you taking medicine? Yeah, the gross pink stuff. Mommy put a humidifier in my room and made me soup. That's good. Make sure you rest. I don't want to rest. I want to go to school. We're making gingerbread houses tomorrow, and I'm going to miss it. There'll be other gingerbread houses. But not with my class. She dissolved into coughing. In the background, Ethan heard Vanessa's voice, gentle and soothing. A moment later, she was on the phone. Ethan, sorry, she's not feeling well. We should probably cut this short. It was the first time Vanessa had spoken directly to him since the courthouse. Her voice was exactly as he remembered, quiet, measured, kind. Hearing it made something in his chest constrict. Is she okay? He asked. It's just a cold. She'll be fine in a few days. Okay, good. An awkward pause. I should go, Vanessa said. She needs to sleep. Wait. Ethan didn't know what he wanted to say. Your birthday is coming up. Lily mentioned it. It's just another day. Still, I hope it's good. The birthday, I mean. Another pause, longer this time. Thank you. Her voice was carefully neutral. Goodbye, Ethan. She hung up before he could respond. Ethan sat staring at his phone, replaying the conversation. It had lasted maybe 90 seconds, but it was the most civil interaction they'd had since everything fell apart. She hadn't sounded angry, just tired. He found himself wondering what her birthday would actually be like. Dinner with her brother and Lily. Probably expensive and elegant, the kind of thing he'd never been part of even when they were married because he hadn't known that part of her life existed. On impulse, Ethan opened his laptop and searched for Vanessa Reed. The articles from before were still there, but newer ones had started appearing. Reed Global Technologies announces Q4 record earnings. Victoria Hayes named one of Forbes' most influential female CEOs. Tech leader Victoria Hayes speaks on innovation at Industry Summit. There were photos of her at corporate events, always professional, always poised. She looked powerful in these images, confident, nothing like the quiet woman who used to make lopsided birthday cakes. One article from just last week caught his attention. Reed Global CEO launches Foundation for Families in Crisis. Ethan clicked through. The article described a new charitable foundation focused on supporting women and families going through difficult divorces, particularly those involving financial abuse or power imbalances. The foundation would provide legal assistance, counseling services, and financial literacy programs. There was a quote from Vanessa. "Too many people feel powerless during divorce. They stay in bad situations because they don't know they have options. This foundation exists to show them they do." Ethan closed the laptop, feeling sick. She'd turned their disaster into something that helped other people. Meanwhile, he was living in his childhood bedroom and drawing elevations for projects he used to pitch to clients. Thursday brought more elevation work and another phone call with Lily, who sounded better but was still home from school. She told him about the gingerbread house Vanessa had bought so she wouldn't miss out completely. "We made it together. I put too much frosting on and it got all messy, but Mommy said that's the best kind. Your mom's right. Messy gingerbread houses are the best. I wish you could see it. Maybe you can take a picture and have Mommy send it to me. Okay? I'll ask her." An hour after the call ended, Ethan's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. A photo of Lily beaming next to a gingerbread house that was indeed extremely messy, frosting everywhere, candy falling off the roof. The text beneath it, "She wanted you to see." V. Ethan stared at the photo for a long time, then typed back, "Thank you. Tell her it's perfect." No response came, but he didn't expect one. Saturday's visitation was the last one before the holidays. Dr. Chen had decorated the playroom with a small Christmas tree and some garland. Lily brought homemade ornaments she'd crafted at school. "This one's for you," she said, handing him a construction paper snowflake with his name written in glitter glue. "And this one's for Mommy, and this one's for Grandma and Grandpa. These are beautiful, sweetheart. We made them in art class. Mrs. Johnson said we should give them to people we love." They hung the ornaments on the small tree together. Lily chattered about Christmas plans. Uncle Alexander was flying in from New York. They were going to see the Nutcracker, and Santa was hopefully bringing her the science kit she'd asked for. "What do you want for Christmas, Daddy?" The honest answer was too complicated. "I want my old life back. I want to undo the last year. I want to wake up and have this all be a nightmare." "I want you to be happy," Ethan said instead. "That's not a present." "It is to me." Lily considered this seriously. "Okay. Then I want you to be happy too. That's what I'm asking Santa for." Near the end of the visit, she got quiet. "I wish you could be there on Christmas morning." "Me too, baby." "Will you think about me when you wake up?" "You'll be the first thing I think about." "Promise?" "Promise." When Dr. Chen came to end the session, Lily hugged Ethan extra tight. "I love you all the way to space and back." It was their old saying from when she was tiny. Hearing it now, in this sterile visitation room instead of her bedroom, made Ethan's throat close up. "I love you all the way to space and back times infinity," he managed. Watching her leave through the one-way glass got harder every time instead of easier. December 12th arrived on a Tuesday. Ethan woke up knowing it was Vanessa's birthday, but not knowing what, if anything, he should do about it. Sending a gift felt presumptuous. Calling felt intrusive. Doing nothing felt wrong. He settled on a text message, simple and brief. "Happy birthday." No response came. He didn't expect one. Work provided a distraction. The Lakewood project was expanding, and Rachel assigned him more complex tasks, site analysis, preliminary space planning. It was still junior-level work, but required actual thought instead of just mechanical drawing. During lunch, Tom stopped by. "Jennifer's impressed with you. She mentioned potentially moving you up to intermediate designer after the first quarter if you keep up the quality." "Seriously?" "Yeah, I mean, don't screw it up between now and then, but yeah, she sees potential." It was the best professional news Ethan had gotten in months.
Intermediate designer meant more responsibility, more interesting work, and most importantly, a salary bump. Not huge, but maybe enough to move out of his parents' house. That evening's call with Lily was full of birthday party details. Alexander had apparently rented out an entire restaurant just for the three of them. And there was a cake with sparklers, real sparklers that lit up. And Uncle Alexander gave Mommy a necklace with diamonds, and she cried happy tears. That sounds wonderful, sweetheart. Yeah, it was really fun. I wish you could have been there, though. The words were becoming a refrain. I wish you could have been there. I wish things were different. I wish we were still a family. Me too, Ethan said quietly. After they hung up, Ethan sat in his childhood bedroom and thought about Vanessa turning 31, surrounded by her brother and daughter, in some expensive restaurant he'd never even known she could afford. He thought about her crying happy tears over a diamond necklace from the brother he'd never met. He thought about how thoroughly he'd failed to actually know the person he'd married. His phone buzzed, a text from that same unknown number. Another photo. This one of Vanessa and Lily at a restaurant, both smiling, Lily making a silly face. The message beneath, she wanted you to know her mom had a good birthday, said you'd want to see. V. Ethan studied the photo. Vanessa looked happy. Actually happy. Not the careful neutral expression she wore in court or the exhausted sadness he remembered from the last months of their marriage. She looked like someone who'd finally laid down a burden she'd been carrying too long. He typed, "Thank you for sending it. I'm glad she was there with you." This time a response came almost immediately. "She loves you. That hasn't changed." Ethan stared at the message, then typed, "I know. I love her too. For whatever that's worth now." The three dots appeared, indicating Vanessa was typing. They disappeared, appeared again, disappeared. Finally, "It's worth something, maybe not what it used to be, but something." The conversation ended there. But Ethan saved both photos, the gingerbread house and the birthday dinner, and looked at them probably too many times before finally falling asleep. The week before Christmas was chaos at the office. Clients wanted projects finalized before the holiday break, deadlines accelerated. Everyone stressed and running on too much coffee. Ethan worked late 3 nights in a row, missing Thursday's scheduled call with Lily because he simply forgot until 8 p.m. when Dr. Chen sent a reminder text. He called immediately. "I'm so sorry. I got caught up at work and lost track of time." "It happens," Dr. Chen said, but Lily was disappointed. "Maybe you could arrange a makeup call tomorrow?" "Yes, absolutely. Can I talk to her now? Is it too late?" "She's already asleep. Tomorrow would be better." Ethan felt terrible. One of only 2 calls per week, and he'd missed it because he was drawing floor plans. The next day he called at lunch. Vanessa answered. "She's at school," Vanessa said. "Was there something specific?" "I missed our call last night. I wanted to apologize." "You can tell her tonight. Her bedtime is 8. "Okay, thank you." A pause. "How is she?" "Really?" Vanessa was quiet for a moment. "She's okay. The holidays are hard. She misses having both parents around. But she's resilient. She'll adapt." "That sounds clinical." "That's what the child psychologist said. We've been seeing Dr. Martinez twice a month." Ethan hadn't known Lily was in therapy. Another thing he'd missed. "Is that because of the divorce?" "It's because her entire family structure changed overnight, and she needed someone to help her process it." Vanessa's voice was even but firm. "Dr. Martinez says she's doing well, all things considered." What does all things considered mean? It means she's a 6-year-old dealing with divorce and supervised visitations and parents who can barely talk to each other. She's doing as well as anyone could expect given those circumstances. The words stung because they were true. "I want to do better. By her, I mean. I want to be better." "Then be better, Ethan. Show up. Be present. Stop making excuses." Her voice softened slightly. "She needs her father, not the guy who forgot to call because he was busy at work. The actual father who makes her a priority." "I'm trying." "Try harder." The line went dead. Ethan sat in his car in the office parking lot, staring at nothing. Vanessa was right. He'd let work consume him again, the same pattern that had contributed to their marriage falling apart in the first place. He'd missed a call with his daughter because elevations and floor plans felt urgent. Nothing was more urgent than Lily.
That evening, he called at exactly 8. Lily answered immediately. Daddy, you forgot yesterday. I know, baby. I'm really sorry. I messed up.
It's okay. Mommy said sometimes adults forget things when they're busy. That's true, but it's not a good excuse. You're the most important thing in my life, and I should have remembered. It's really okay, Daddy. You can make it up to me on Saturday. That's our last visit before Christmas, right? Right. Will you bring me a present? Do you want me to? Yeah, but nothing too big. Dr. Chen says presents aren't supposed to be about buying love. They're supposed to be about showing you care. 6 years old and already wiser than Ethan had been at 32. I'll bring you something that shows I care, he promised. They talked for 20 minutes about school and friends and Christmas wishes. When they hung up, Ethan felt marginally less like a failure. Saturday, he showed up to visitation with a small wrapped box. Inside was a bracelet he'd made himself. Not bought, made. He'd gone to a craft store and spent 2 hours threading beads onto elastic cord, spelling out "Daddy loves Lily" with letter beads in between her favorite colors. It was cheap and homemade and probably looked ridiculous, but it was from him, actually from him, not just purchased with money. Lily's face lit up when she opened it. You made this? Yeah, I know it's not fancy, but I love it. She immediately put it on. Look how pretty. Can I show Dr. Chen? Of course. She ran to show the counselor, leaving Ethan alone in the playroom. Through the window, he saw Vanessa in the waiting area, reading as usual. She glanced up, saw Lily showing off the bracelet, and something crossed her face. Not quite a smile, but close. For the first time in months, Ethan felt like he'd done something right. The visit was good. They played games, read books, talked about what Santa might bring. When it ended, Lily hugged him tight. This is my favorite present, she said, holding up her wrist, because you made it just for me. I'm glad you like it, sweetheart. I'm going to wear it every day, even to sleep. Well, maybe take it off for baths. Okay, but that's it. Watching her leave was still hard. But this time, as Vanessa took her hand and headed for the exit, she glanced back at Ethan through the one-way glass. Just a brief look, but her expression was softer than it had been. Maybe it was his imagination, or maybe she'd seen him trying, actually trying, for the first time in a long time. Christmas morning, Ethan woke up in his childhood bedroom and thought about Lily first thing, just like he'd promised. Wondered what she was doing, whether she was already awake, tearing into presents, whether she was thinking about him too. His parents made breakfast, his father's famous cinnamon rolls that he only made once a year. They exchanged small gifts, practical things. Ethan gave them each gift cards. They gave him a new winter coat and a gift card to the grocery store. For when you get your own place, his mother explained. Thanks, Mom. It was quiet and subdued, nothing like the chaotic Christmas mornings when Lily was there. Around noon, Ethan's phone buzzed. A photo from Vanessa's number. Lily, in her pajamas, surrounded by wrapping paper, holding up a science kit and beaming. The message, "She said to tell you Santa came and she misses you." Ethan typed back, "Tell her I miss her too. Looks like Santa knew exactly what she wanted." Another photo arrived. Lily wearing the bracelet he'd made, holding it up to the camera with a huge smile. She hasn't taken it off since Saturday. Ethan showed the photos to his parents. His mother's eyes got misty. "That's our girl," she said. "She looks so happy." "Yeah," Ethan said quietly. "She does." The day passed slowly. His parents watched old movies. Ethan tried to focus but kept checking his phone, hoping for more photos. None came, but that was okay. Vanessa had sent what she'd sent because Lily asked her to. That was enough. Later that evening, as Ethan helped clean up dinner dishes, his father spoke. "You're doing better." Ethan looked up, surprised. His father rarely offered unsolicited observations about anything, let alone emotions. "Yeah?" "Yeah, you look less..." His father searched for the word. "Lost. Less lost than when you first moved back. I'm working on it. That's all any of us can do. Work on it." His father dried a plate methodically. "Your mother and we were disappointed when we heard about the divorce, about the reasons for it." Ethan's stomach tightened. "I know. But you're our son. We're not going to abandon you because you made mistakes, even big ones." He set down the plate. "You've got a chance to rebuild.
Don't waste it feeling sorry for yourself. It was the longest speech Ethan had heard his father give in years. I won't, Ethan said. I'm trying not to. His father nodded once, satisfied, and went back to drying dishes. That night, lying in bed, Ethan thought about rebuilding, about the junior designer job that might become intermediate, about the visitations that might eventually become unsupervised, about the daughter who still loved him despite everything he'd done wrong, about the ex-wife who'd sent photos on Christmas because their daughter missed him.
Maybe his father was right. Maybe he did look less lost. Because for the first time since everything fell apart, Ethan could see a path forward. It was narrow and steep and would take years to climb. But it existed. And that was something. January brought ice storms and a promotion Ethan hadn't quite expected. Jennifer called him into her office on a Tuesday morning, gesturing to the chair across from her desk. You've been here 2 months, she said without preamble. The quality of your work has been consistently excellent. You meet deadlines, you don't complain about assignments, and frankly, you're more reliable than half the people we hired straight out of grad school. Ethan wasn't sure where this was going. Thank you. I'm moving you to intermediate designer effective immediately. That comes with a salary increase to $68,000 and your own project assignments instead of just support work. Think you can handle it? Absolutely. Good. There's a community center renovation that needs a lead. It's yours. She slid a folder across the desk. Client meeting is Thursday. Don't make me regret this. I won't. Walking out of her office, Ethan felt something he hadn't experienced in almost a year. Professional pride. It was small and tentative, but real. He'd earned this through actual work, not connections or his wife's hidden influence. Just himself. Tom caught up with him at his desk. Heard you got bumped up. Congrats, man. Thanks for vouching for me. I know you took a risk. You proved me right. That's all that matters. Tom hesitated. Listen, I wanted to ask, you doing okay? Like, actually okay? The question caught Ethan off guard. Yeah. Why? Because 2 months ago you looked like you were barely holding it together, and now you look like you're actually sleeping. Just wanted to make sure it wasn't a fluke. Ethan considered the question seriously. Was he okay? He was living in his parents' house, seeing his daughter twice a week under supervision, paying off a massive debt, and working a job that paid a third of what he used to make. By most measures, his life was a disaster. But he woke up every morning without a hangover. He showed up to work on time. He didn't spend his evenings drinking himself numb. He talked to Lily regularly, and she seemed happy to hear from him. I'm getting there, Ethan said finally. Not okay yet, but better than I was. Good enough, Tom said. Let me know if you need anything. The community center project consumed the next 2 weeks. Ethan threw himself into it with an intensity that surprised him. Site visits, client consultations, preliminary designs that he revised 6 times before presenting. The client was a nonprofit director named Maria Santos, who had strong opinions about accessibility and natural light. This entrance ramp angle is too steep, she said during their second meeting, pointing at his drawings. A DA compliant isn't the same as actually usable for someone in a wheelchair. She was right. Ethan had followed the technical requirements but hadn't thought about practical use. He revised the design with a gentler slope and a covered waiting area. Better, Maria said, examining the new plans. You're actually listening. That's rare. It's your building. It should work the way you need it to. You'd be surprised how many architects think they know better than the people who'll actually use the space. She smiled. I think we're going to work well together. The project felt good in a way his old work hadn't. This wasn't some luxury development for wealthy investors. This was a community center that would serve low-income families, provide after-school programs, host job training workshops. It mattered. At home, things were shifting too. His father had started asking about the projects Ethan was working on, actually seeming interested in the answers. His mother had stopped hovering quite so much, trusting that he wasn't going to self-destruct. When do you think you'll move out? She asked one evening as they cleaned up dinner. Couple months, maybe. I want to save enough for first and last month's rent plus a security deposit. Can't afford much, but I need my own space. There's no rush. We like having you here. Mom, I'm 32. I need to not live in my childhood bedroom. She smiled. Fair enough, but the offer stands if you need more time.
The scheduled calls with Lily had become the highlights of Ethan's week. Tuesday and Thursday at 7, 15 minutes that felt simultaneously too long and not long enough. She told him about school projects and friendship drama and a loose tooth that was driving her crazy. "It's so wiggly, but it won't come out," she complained. "I've been wiggling it for days." "Don't force it. It'll come out when it's ready. That's what Mommy says, but I want the tooth fairy money now." Ethan laughed. "Patience, sweetheart. That's what grown-ups say when they don't want to admit something takes too long." She wasn't wrong. In late January, Dr. Chen called with news. "I'm recommending a modification to your custody arrangement. You've been consistent with visitation, you've maintained stable employment, and Lily reports feeling comfortable and safe during your time together. I'm suggesting we move to unsupervised visits." Ethan's heart jumped. Seriously? There would still be conditions. Visits would be in public spaces initially, gradually moving to overnight stays if things continue going well. But yes, I think you're ready. What does Vanessa think? Mrs. Reed's attorney has reviewed my recommendation. They're not opposing it. Not opposing wasn't exactly enthusiastic support, but it was something. The hearing was scheduled for mid-February. Patterson seemed optimistic. "Judge Morrison likes to see people doing the work. You've done the work. Just don't screw up between now and then." Ethan didn't screw up. He showed up to every visitation, called Lily exactly on schedule, worked his ass off at the office, and avoided bars entirely. He started seeing a therapist, not because the court required it anymore, but because his mother had worn him down and because, honestly, he needed it. The therapist's name was Dr. Alan Park, a soft-spoken Korean-American man in his 50s who had an office that smelled like lavender and asked questions Ethan didn't always want to answer. "Why do you think you had the affair?" Dr. Park asked during their third session. Ethan had thought about this question for months. "I don't know. Khloe was attractive and paid attention to me and made me feel important." "Did Vanessa not make you feel important?" "She did. Just differently." "How so?" Ethan struggled to articulate it. Vanessa's attention was quiet. She'd remember I had a big presentation and make my favorite dinner that night without me asking. She'd notice when I was stressed and just sit with me. It wasn't dramatic or exciting, it was just there. And Khloe's attention was different. Khloe told me I was brilliant, that my work was incredible, that I deserved more recognition than I was getting. It felt good to hear that. Even though Vanessa was literally funding your career success behind the scenes, the irony wasn't lost on Ethan. "I didn't know that then." "Would it have mattered if you had?" That was the question, wasn't it? Would knowing Vanessa was a billionaire CEO have changed anything? Or would he have resented her success, felt emasculated by it, maybe even betrayed her faster? "I don't know," Ethan admitted. "I'd like to think it would have made me appreciate what I had. But honestly, I might have resented her for it." "Why?" "Because I wanted to be the successful one. I wanted to be the provider, the one making things happen. Finding out my wife was secretly more successful than I'd ever be, that would have destroyed my ego." "And your ego was important to you." "Too important." Ethan rubbed his face. "I built my whole identity around being a successful architect, a good provider. When that started feeling shaky, I looked for validation somewhere else instead of actually dealing with my insecurity." "That's significant insight. Doesn't change what I did." "No, but it helps you understand why you did it, and that's how you avoid doing it again." The sessions were uncomfortable but necessary. Slowly, painfully, Ethan started understanding the person he'd been and the person he wanted to become. They weren't the same. The custody hearing in February was quick. Dr. Chen testified about Ethan's progress. Patterson presented evidence of stable employment and consistent visitation. Vanessa's attorney didn't argue, just asked that the transition be gradual. Judge Morrison listened to everything, reviewed the reports, and made her ruling. "Mr. Cole, I'm granting unsupervised visitation effective immediately. You'll have Lily every other weekend, Friday evening through Sunday afternoon. Additionally, 1 dinner visit per week on a day coordinated with Mrs. Reed. After 3 months, assuming continued stability, we'll revisit overnight arrangements." Ethan could barely process it. Real visits, actual time with his daughter, outside sterile playrooms with counselors watching. "Thank you, Your Honor." "Don't thank me. Thank Dr. Chen and your ex-wife for being reasonable. And Mr. Cole, Judge Morrison looked at him over her glasses. This is a privilege, not a right. Mess it up, and we're back to supervised visits immediately. Understood? Understood. The first unsupervised visit was scheduled for the following Friday. Ethan was supposed to pick Lily up at Vanessa's penthouse at 6 p.m. He showed up 10 minutes early, standing outside a building he'd never been to, in a neighborhood he couldn't have afforded even when he was doing well. The doorman called up, then directed Ethan to the elevator. Penthouse level. Her unit is the only one on that floor. The elevator was all mirrors and polished brass. Ethan watched his reflection rise through 20 floors, hardly recognizing the person staring back. He'd lost weight. His suit, the same one from court, hung a little loose now. He looked older, but somehow less exhausted. The elevator opened directly into a private foyer. One door, solid wood with a brass knocker. Ethan knocked, and Vanessa answered. She was wearing jeans and a sweater, barefoot, hair pulled back in a ponytail. For a moment, they just stood there, the first time they'd been face-to-face without lawyers or counselors since the courthouse. "Hi," Ethan said. "Hi." Vanessa stepped back. "Come in. Lily's almost ready." The penthouse was stunning, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, modern furniture that looked simultaneously comfortable and expensive, art on the walls that was probably worth more than Ethan made in a year. But there were also kid things, Lily's drawings on the fridge, a purple backpack on the counter, toys in a basket by the window. "Nice place," Ethan said, "because what else do you say?" "It works for us." Vanessa walked toward the hallway. "Lily, your dad's here!" Thundering footsteps, then Lily appeared, launching herself at Ethan. "Daddy!" He caught her, lifting her up. She'd gotten heavier. Kids did that. "Hey, sweetheart, you ready for our weekend?" "So ready. I packed my bag and everything. Can we get pizza?" "If that's what you want." "And can we go to the Science Museum tomorrow?" "Absolutely." Vanessa appeared with a small overnight bag. Her inhaler is in the front pocket. She's been having some asthma symptoms with the cold weather. Bedtime is 8:30 on weekends. She needs to call me before bed both nights. "Got it." "And Ethan?" Vanessa's voice was quiet but firm. "No drinking. At all. Even after she's asleep." "I haven't had a drink in 3 months." Something flickered across her face. Surprise, maybe. "Good. Keep it that way." Lily grabbed Ethan's hand. "Come on, let's go." "Have fun, baby," Vanessa said, kissing the top of Lily's head. "Be good for your dad." "I will." In the elevator, Lily chattered nonstop about everything she wanted to do this weekend. Ethan half listened, still processing being in Vanessa's space, seeing how she actually lived. The woman in that penthouse was someone he'd never really known. Successful, wealthy, confident, and she'd given it all up every day to come home and be his wife, make dinner, help with homework. How had he not seen it? How had he been so blind? "Daddy, you're not listening." "Sorry, sweetheart." "What did you say?" "I said, can we call Grandma and Grandpa? I miss them." "Of course. We can drive over tomorrow if you want." "Really?" "Yes." His parents' house seemed smaller than usual with Lily there, but she didn't care. She ran from room to room, showing her grandparents her loose tooth, which still hadn't fallen out, her science kit, the bracelet Ethan had made that she still wore every day. His mother pulled him aside while Lily and his father examined the bird feeder in the backyard. "She's happy." "Yeah." "You're doing good, honey. Really good." "I'm trying." "I can tell. Keep trying." That night, Lily fell asleep on Ethan's parents' couch watching a movie. He carried her to the car, buckled her in carefully, and drove back to his apartment. A one-bedroom place he'd moved into 2 weeks ago, barely furnished but his own. He'd set up an air mattress in the living room for Lily, made it as comfortable as possible with pillows and her favorite stuffed animals from Vanessa's place. At 8:15, he helped her call Vanessa. "Hi, Mommy. We had so much fun today. We saw Grandma and Grandpa and went to the museum and had pizza." And Lily recounted the entire day while Ethan cleaned up dinner dishes. He could hear Vanessa's responses, warm and engaged. When Lily finally said goodnight and hung up, she handed Ethan the phone. "Mommy wants to talk to you." Ethan took the phone. Hey. Vanessa sounded tired. "She sounds happy." "She is. We had a good day." "Good. That's good." A pause. "The apartment sounds quiet.
You're not at your parents'. I moved out 2 weeks ago, got a place across town. It's not much, but it's mine. That's progress. Yeah. Ethan hesitated. Thank you. For what? For not fighting the custody modification, for letting me have this time with her, for sending those photos at Christmas, He stopped. For not destroying me when you easily could have.
Vanessa was quiet for a long moment.
I never wanted to destroy you, Ethan. I just wanted you to understand what you threw away, and maybe I wanted you to hurt the way I hurt. I do. Understand, I mean. And I am hurting. Have been for months. Good. Her voice was softer now. Not because I want you in pain, but because pain means you're actually processing this instead of running from it. I'm trying to do better, be better. I can see that, so can Lily. That's what matters.
They talked for a few more minutes about logistics, pickup time. Sunday, what activities were okay, whether Lily needed her jacket at his place or should bring one from home. Practical things that felt almost normal. When they hung up, Ethan sat on his barely furnished couch and thought about growth. About how it was ugly and uncomfortable and required destroying old versions of yourself to build new ones. He wasn't the man who'd married Vanessa 8 years ago. He wasn't the man who'd betrayed her. He was someone else now, someone still figuring out who he wanted to be. The weekends with Lily became routine. Every other Friday through Sunday, plus Wednesday dinners, they went to museums and parks and movies. They made pancakes for breakfast and built elaborate blanket forts. They talked about school and friends, and nothing particularly important. And slowly, Ethan started being the father Lily deserved instead of the one he'd been. Work continued to go well. The community center project was completed in April to genuine appreciation from Maria and her board. Jennifer assigned him a small commercial renovation next, then a residential addition. Nothing huge, but honest work that mattered. The debt payments happened every month, like clockwork. $1,000 that left his budget tight but manageable. Patterson filed updates with the court showing consistent compliance. In another 8 months, they'd revisit the amount based on his income. In May, something unexpected happened. Ethan was picking Lily up for their Wednesday dinner when Vanessa invited him inside while Lily finished her homework. Want coffee? Vanessa asked. Sure. They sat in her living room with mugs of coffee, the city lights beginning to flicker on beyond the windows. It was the first time they'd been alone together since before the separation. Lily's doing really well, Vanessa said. Her teacher says she's more focused this semester. Dr. Martinez thinks the stability of regular visitation with both parents is helping. That's good to hear. And you seem better too. Ethan glanced at her. Better than what? Better than in court. Better than during the separation. You look like you're sleeping, eating, not drinking yourself into oblivion every night. I'm not. Drinking, I mean. Been sober since December. Vanessa's eyebrows rose. That's impressive. It's necessary. I can't be the parent Lily needs if I'm drowning in a bottle. No, you can't. She sipped her coffee. I saw the article about your community center project. It's good work. You've been following my work? Lily talks about it constantly. She's very proud of her dad, the architect. Vanessa smiled slightly. I got curious. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Vanessa spoke again. I've been thinking about forgiveness lately, what it means, whether it's possible, who deserves it. Ethan's chest tightened. Have you come to any conclusions? Not really. I'm not there yet, Ethan. I don't know if I'll ever be completely there. What you did, the betrayal, the lies, taking that money, it broke something fundamental. I know. But I also see you trying, really trying, and that matters. She looked at him directly. I don't hate you anymore. I did for a while. But watching you show up for Lily consistently, watching you rebuild your life instead of giving up, I don't hate you. I don't deserve your forgiveness. Maybe not, but you're earning something. Maybe not forgiveness exactly, but respect, I guess, for doing the hard work instead of running from it. Ethan felt something loosen in his chest. Not absolution. He didn't deserve that, but acknowledgement that he was trying, from the person whose opinion mattered most. I need you to understand something, he said carefully. I loved you. I know I destroyed everything and threw it away like it meant nothing, but I did love you. I just didn't know how to love you properly. I was so caught up in my own ego and insecurities that I couldn't see what I had.
I know you loved me, in your way. Vanessa set down her coffee. But love without respect, without seeing the other person clearly, it's not enough. You loved some version of me you created in your head, the quiet, supportive wife who existed to make your life easier. You never actually tried to know who I really was. You hid who you really were.
I hid my career. I didn't hide my values, my personality, what mattered to me. You just never asked. You never wanted to know anything that didn't directly relate to you. The words stung because they were absolutely true. Ethan had coasted through 8 years of marriage, barely knowing his wife's favorite color, what she'd studied in college, what her dreams were beyond being Lily's mother. You're right, he said quietly. I was selfish, completely, profoundly selfish. And I'm sorry. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I am sorry. I know you are. Vanessa stood. Lily should be done with homework. You two have dinner reservations to get to. The conversation ended there, but something had shifted. Not reconciliation. That wasn't possible and probably wasn't even desirable. But maybe the beginning of something civil. Two parents who could coexist peacefully for their daughter's sake. Summer brought changes. Jennifer offered Ethan a promotion to senior designer, which came with a salary of $85,000 and his own office. Patterson successfully petitioned for a reduction in debt payments to $800 a month, given Ethan's stable situation. The judge approved extended custody. Lily could now stay with Ethan for a week at a time during summer vacation. That first week alone with his daughter felt like both a gift and a test. Could he actually do this? Be a full-time parent without supervision or backup? They went to the beach, built sandcastles that the tide destroyed, got sunburned despite excessive sunscreen. They attempted to bake cookies and created a kitchen disaster that took an hour to clean. They stayed up too late watching movies and woke up early to make elaborate breakfasts. It was exhausting and chaotic and the best week Ethan had experienced in years. When he dropped Lily back at Vanessa's penthouse, his daughter hugged him extra tight. That was the best week ever, Daddy. Yeah? Yeah, can we do it again? Absolutely. Vanessa stood in the doorway, watching them. When Lily ran inside to unpack, she spoke quietly. Thank you for taking good care of her. She's my daughter. Of course I took good care of her. That's not as automatic as you'd think. Some people don't. Vanessa met his eyes. You're becoming a good father, Ethan. I thought you should know that. Coming from her, the compliment meant everything. By Lily's 7th birthday in September, things had settled into a new normal. Ethan had his own apartment, a stable job, and a real relationship with his daughter. He was 3 months from finishing his mandated year of reduced debt payments. He hadn't had a drink in 9 months. He wasn't the man he used to be. That person was gone, burned away by consequences and hard work and genuine remorse. The birthday party was at Vanessa's penthouse, the first event they'd hosted together since the divorce. Alexander was there, Vanessa's brother who Ethan finally met properly. He was tall, sharp-eyed, protective of his sister, but civil to Ethan.
Hurt her again, and I'll bury you, Alexander said pleasantly during a quiet moment. Not legally, financially. You'll never work again? Understood. Good. Want a beer? I don't drink anymore. Alexander studied him. Smart choice. He grabbed a soda instead and handed it over. Vanessa says you're doing better, that you're actually showing up for Lily. I'm trying. Try harder. That kid deserves the best from both her parents.
Watching Lily blow out candles surrounded by friends and family, Ethan felt the full weight of what he'd almost lost. This moment, this joy, this connection, he'd nearly destroyed it all for an affair that lasted less than a year and meant nothing. Vanessa caught his eye across the room and offered a small smile. Not forgiveness, but acknowledgement. They were here, together, giving their daughter a good birthday. That was enough. Later, as guests were leaving and Lily was running on sugar and excitement, Ethan helped Vanessa clean up. Thank you for letting me be part of this, he said. It's her birthday. You're her father. Where else would you be? I don't know. A year ago, I wouldn't have been invited. A year ago, you hadn't earned an invitation. Vanessa stacked plates. But you have now. You've shown up consistently. You've been sober. You've put Lily first. That matters. I want to keep mattering. Then keep showing up. They cleaned in comfortable silence for a while. Then Vanessa spoke again. started dating someone. The words hit Ethan unexpectedly hard. Oh. His name is Marcus. He's a venture capitalist. We've been seeing each other for a few months. She glanced at him. I wanted you to hear it from me before Lily mentioned it. Does Lily know? She's met him a few times. Nothing serious yet, just casual dinners. I wanted to make sure it was going somewhere before introducing them properly. Ethan swallowed the complicated mess of emotions, jealousy, regret, something that might have been grief for a future that would never happen. I hope he's good to you. He is. Vanessa set down the plates. I'm not telling you this to hurt you. I'm telling you because we're co-parenting and I want to be transparent about who's in Lily's life. I appreciate that. Also because I need to know you're okay with it. If you're going to be weird or hostile when Lily talks about him, I won't be. I promise. Ethan met her eyes. You deserve to be happy, Vanessa. You deserve someone who sees you clearly and loves you for who you actually are. If Marcus does that, then I'm genuinely glad for you. Vanessa studied him for a long moment. I think you actually mean that. I do. Then we're okay. They finished cleaning up together, a divorced couple who'd found a way to be kind to each other despite everything. It wasn't what either of them had imagined 8 years ago, but it was honest, real, built on hard truth instead of comfortable lies. The foundation Vanessa had started was growing. By October, it had helped over 300 families navigate difficult divorces, provided legal aid to people who couldn't afford representation, offered counseling and financial planning services. She'd turned their disaster into something that helped others avoid the same pain. Ethan found himself volunteering with the foundation on weekends he didn't have Lily. Nothing legal, he had no expertise there, but he helped with building projects, using his architecture skills to design affordable office spaces and improve the foundation's physical locations. You don't have to do this, Vanessa said when he first offered. I know, but I want to. What you're building matters. If I can help in some small way, she'd accepted the offer. Now every other Saturday, Ethan spent the morning working on foundation projects. It felt like redemption, though he knew redemption wasn't really possible. Just the slow, unglamorous work of trying to be better. By Christmas, 1 full year since everything had collapsed, Ethan's life looked completely different. He had a good job, his own apartment, a real relationship with his daughter, and a civil co-parenting arrangement with his ex-wife. He was sober, in therapy, and generally handling his life like a functional adult. It wasn't perfect. He still had 6 years of debt payments ahead of him. He still lived modestly, couldn't afford the lifestyle he used to have. He still woke up some mornings with the crushing weight of regret over what he'd destroyed. But he was okay. Actually okay, not just pretending. This year, Lily spent Christmas Eve with him and Christmas Day with Vanessa and her family. They'd split the holiday amicably, both focused on making it good for their daughter. On Christmas morning, after Lily had opened presents and called Vanessa to describe everything Santa brought, she looked at Ethan seriously. Daddy, can I ask you something? Of course, sweetheart. Are you happy now? The question surprised him. What do you mean? Last year you seemed really sad. Like all the time sad. But this year you seem better. So are you happy? Ethan thought about the question carefully. Was he happy? He'd lost so much, his marriage, his business, his home, years of financial security. He'd hurt people he loved and faced consequences that would follow him for years. But he'd also gained things. Clarity about who he was, a genuine relationship with his daughter, sobriety, the satisfaction of work that mattered instead of just work that paid well. Self-awareness he'd never bothered developing before. I'm happier than I was, he said finally. I made some really big mistakes that hurt people, and I'm still fixing those mistakes. But yeah, I think I'm getting there. Good, Lily hugged him. I want you to be happy, you and Mommy both. Is Mommy happy? I think so. She smiles more now, and Marcus makes her laugh. Something in Ethan's chest ached, but it was a good ache. The ache of letting go of something that was never really his to keep. That's good, sweetheart. She deserves to be happy. So do you, Daddy. You deserve to be happy too. Out of the mouths of children. That simple, devastating forgiveness that adults could never quite manage. 2 years after the divorce, Ethan attended Lily's 3rd grade performance at school. She played a flower in the spring pageant, took her role very seriously, and was completely adorable. Ethan sat in the audience next to Vanessa and Marcus, a venture capitalist who turned out to be genuinely nice and clearly adored Vanessa. It should have been awkward, the ex-husband sitting next to his replacement, but it wasn't. They clapped for Lily together, laughed at the same parts, shared proud parent moments without tension. After the show, they all went to dinner. Lily had requested it specifically. Like a real family, she'd said, and how could either parent refuse? At the restaurant, Marcus asked Ethan about his work. They talked about architecture and development, found common ground in their appreciation for good design. Vanessa watched the interaction with something like relief. Later, after Lily had been dropped back at Vanessa's and Ethan was driving home alone, he realized something. He was okay with this. Vanessa with someone new, Lily happy and adjusted, his life small but stable. He'd lost the big impressive life and gained something quieter but more real. It wasn't the ending he would have written 2 years ago, but it was honest. And maybe that was worth more than anything he'd lost. 3 years after the divorce, Ethan was promoted to project manager at Westbrook and Associates. He'd paid off half his debt to Vanessa. Lily was thriving in 4th grade. Vanessa had gotten engaged to Marcus, and Lily was excited about being a flower girl at the wedding. "You're invited," Vanessa told him during a pickup exchange. "To the wedding, if you want to come." As a guest or as Lily's father? As both. "You're part of this family, Ethan. A different part than you used to be, but still part of it." It would mean a lot to Lily. So Ethan attended his ex-wife's wedding, watched her marry someone who clearly loved her, who saw her clearly, who'd never made her hide who she was. He watched Lily throw flower petals with serious concentration. He chatted with Alexander, who'd become something like a friend over the years. And he was happy for them. Genuinely, completely happy. Because he'd finally learned the difference between loving someone and actually knowing how to love them well. He'd loved Vanessa, but he'd loved her badly, selfishly, carelessly, without ever trying to see who she really was. Marcus loved her well. You could see it in how he looked at her, how he listened when she talked, how he'd built his life around hers instead of expecting her to shrink into his. At the reception, Vanessa found him standing alone by the window. "Thank you for coming," she said. Thank you for inviting me." "Lily's happy you're here." "I'm happy to be here." He turned to her. "You look beautiful and happy. Really happy." "I am." She smiled. "We both are, I think. In different ways, but both happy." "Yeah, we are." They stood in comfortable silence, watching Lily dance with Marcus's nephew. Then Vanessa spoke quietly. "I forgive you, Ethan. I don't know if I ever said that explicitly, but I do. You hurt me badly, but you've spent 3 years doing the work to be better. You've earned it." Ethan felt tears prick his eyes. "Thank you. Don't waste it. Keep being the father Lily deserves. Keep being the person you've worked so hard to become." "I will. I promise." She squeezed his arm once, then walked back to her new husband, her new life, the happiness she'd built from the ruins of what they'd had. Ethan watched her go, feeling the complicated mix of regret and gratitude and peace that came with genuinely letting go. He'd destroyed something precious because he couldn't see its value until it was gone. He'd spent years paying the price for that blindness. But somewhere in the wreckage, he'd found himself. Not the impressive, successful architect he'd pretended to be, but the flawed, struggling, trying person underneath. That person was better than who he'd been. Not perfect, not impressive, but real. And maybe that was the only thing that mattered in the end. Not how successful you appeared, not how impressive your life looked from the outside, but whether you were honest about who you were and genuinely tried to do right by the people you loved. Ethan hadn't always done right. He'd failed spectacularly, hurt people badly, destroyed more than he'd built for a long time. But he was trying now. Every day, imperfectly, he was trying. And watching his daughter dance at his ex-wife's wedding, seeing 2 people he cared about genuinely happy, Ethan understood that sometimes the best thing you can do is get out of the way and let the people you love find the happiness you couldn't give them. Then do the hard work of building your own. 5 years after the divorce, Ethan had paid off his debt to Vanessa completely. He'd bought a small house in a decent neighborhood. He had Lily every other week now, a real 50-50 custody arrangement. He'd started dating someone, a teacher named Rebecca, who knew his whole messy history and chose him anyway. Life was quiet, modest,
Nothing like the impressive existence he'd built on his wife's hidden foundation.
But it was his. Actually his. Built through his own work, his own choices, his own slow, painful growth. And that made all the difference. On the anniversary of the divorce being finalized, Ethan took Lily to their favorite diner. Over milkshakes and fries, she asked him something she'd never asked before. "Do you wish things had been different with you and Mom?"
Ethan thought about it carefully. "I wish I'd been different. I wish I'd seen your mom clearly, loved her better, not destroyed our marriage. But if I could go back and erase everything that happened, no. Because then I wouldn't have learned what I needed to learn. I wouldn't have become who I am now." "Do you like who you are now?" "Yeah, sweetheart, I do. Most days anyway. I'm not perfect, but I'm trying to be good. That's enough."
Lily nodded seriously. "Mommy says that too. That trying is what matters. Your mom's a smart woman." "I know," Lily grinned. "I got her brains and your creative stuff. Best of both." She had no idea how right she was. That night, alone in his small house, Ethan thought about the man he'd been 5 years ago. Arrogant, blind, so sure he'd built everything himself while his wife quietly held up the scaffolding. That man had lost everything and deserved to. But in losing everything, he'd found something more valuable than success or status or an impressive life. He'd found himself. The actual person underneath the ego and insecurity. Flawed, struggling, but finally honest. You don't always get second chances. You don't always earn forgiveness. You don't always rebuild what you destroyed. But sometimes, if you do the work, the hard, unglamorous, painful work of actually changing, you get something better than what you lost. Not the same, never the same, but real in a way the old life never was. Ethan hadn't gotten his wife back, hadn't reclaimed his old success, hadn't erased his mistakes or avoided their consequences. But he'd gotten himself back, the real version, not the performance, and he'd kept his daughter's love. And he'd built a life that was small but honest. In the end, maybe that was the only victory that actually mattered. Not whether you won or lost, but whether you faced what you'd done and did the work to be better. Ethan had done the work, was still doing it, would always be doing it. And that, finally, was enough.